Good morning, everyone. I welcome all of you for today's session. So, we had been discussing about aptitude. In this, I discussed with all of you what is aptitude all about. I explained you the definition of aptitude. I compared aptitude with intelligence. I also explained you some basic insights pertaining to it, and some kind of content was also given to you, along with why aptitude is needed, and what is interest, how interest is different from attitude. We may be interested in things, but we may not have aptitude for it. Like, I'm interested in dancing and singing, but I cannot dance well, and don't have a voice suited for singing. So interest does not imply that we have the aptitude for it. So I explained this to you, and then we move to aptitude realization. Along with aptitude realization, after explaining you that aptitude realization is when we are able to identify that what we are truly interested in. And in the process of aptitude realization, I gave you three insights. I said that it is associated with correct identification of your aptitude. You should also have the motivation to resolve it or pursue your aptitude. And third, I said that you should also have the social, cultural, or economic environment to support you. And then I said that out of the three, even if two are present, you shall be able to achieve success, or you shall be able to achieve your goal. In the very process, I also shared about aptitude identification. In aptitude identification, I shared that there can be formal and informal ways related to this given segment. So, this is could you please throw light on Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad? It is said in locality son grows differently than his father or mother. Yeah, I mean, because he was oriented to his spiritual pursuits, Lipika, and that is why Prahlad had a different value system than that of his father. And that is how he could become the reason responsible for the death of his father. Okay. So he had different set of ideals. It's like, if suppose the parents are into some kind of crime and the child is an upright child, and it is the child who grows up to get the parents caught or get the crime exposed. So those possibilities can also exist, but it cannot be generalized that all children grow differently from their parents. It's just the reverse. Majority of the children grow up to take up the value systems and insights of their parents. Few children who develop and evolve differently, they may have a sense of morality getting evolved, with which they gain an idea that about the right and wrong in the world, and in the process they can objectively see that what is wrong with their parental reality, and then they can protest. Okay, Lipika, as you are asking, can we say that we are currently in the process of developing aptitude for civil services? Yes, that's what we can consider. So, as we have to discuss about aptitude identification through formal and informal ways, as we would be exploring the given possibilities pertaining to it, I can, meanwhile, everyone joins in, probably I can give you some other keywords also. So, we all can connect with the given possibility that when we are talking about this given subsegment, we can think of what skills are. So, skills are, we can consider the learnt traits from the past, right? For example, we can think of skillful writers. Similarly, when we are speaking of it, abilities. So, abilities are learned in the present, or they are associated with the present. Associated with the present. So when we are speaking of it, the component of abilities, we can say that when we are discussing about abilities, for example, we can say that I have the ability to ride a car. And when we are speaking of aptitude, it is associated with those things that are learnt in future, provided that training is imparted. Provided that training is imparted. Okay, so we all can consider skills, abilities, aptitude. So skills you have acquired in the past, abilities you have acquired it into the recent past. It's more associated with what you are capable of doing in the present, whereas aptitude is associated with your capability or your ability or your skill for the future, what you are going to gain in future, what is the potential that you hold for future. Okay, so when we are talking about this given possibility, that it is associated with the potential that you hold for future, so that's why when we are speaking of aptitude realization, that is like you're converting aptitude into skill. So aptitude realization, in other words, is converting aptitude into skill. So you understand both the technical words now. So your aptitude means the inclination, the talent, the innate ability that you have. Into skill means a learned tendency that you possess when we are speaking of it. So I'm interested. I'm reading not just a civil servant book with, yes, yes, not just a civil servant is also decent enough, like Atma Kuri. It's going to build the basics with respect to governance, the do's and don'ts, the ethical dilemmas. So not just a civil servant, like Swaroop sir's book, Anil Swaroop sir's book. I know you are reading that book, so it's decent. So Sri Aurobindo, as he is a aptitude of learning. I mean, like Ilma, what have you written? When I don't think so, he is present and alive. So writing in present tense, as he is a aptitude of learning, the he had would be a better word, multiple languages, and later on which helped him then to write patriotic poems and songs which enriched nationalism. Well, he had aptitude for learning multiple languages, which also impacted his expression in various pieces of literature. Simple. Okay, so that's also something which will be like an expression profound enough. So when we are speaking of the given component associated with like skills and abilities and aptitude, and then moving to aptitude realization, and explained you with respect to aptitude realization that you may have like the aptitude, but sometimes you might not be motivated. As I gave you the example of Rajiv Gandhi, he had the aptitude, he had the economic and politically favorable conditions, but he was not interested, he was not inclined. Similarly, a student may be very much interested to prepare for civil services exams. The child would be able to realize that I do have the aptitude to think and write better answers than others, but the child may not have supportive economic conditions. So there can be a possibility that out of three conditions, one may be missing. But still, with the two, there is a fair chance of aptitude realization when we are speaking about this given possibility. Okay, so okay, good. If you have started watching Michael Sandel's lecture and you find it helpful, Rahul, good. So, are aptitude and caliber the same? See, when we are speaking of caliber, Manoj, okay, so caliber is associated with the potential, and when we are saying that this person has the caliber, to conduct this test, conduct this exam, means you are talking about the potential of the person. Okay, the potential of the person to perform a duty, whereas aptitude is indicative of your future potential, future possibility that you may hold if proper training is given. All right. So Anil Swarup sir has written 2 3 books. The Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant is also a good book, Akhilesh. So, skills are a result of aptitude. Yes, I mean, we can consider the skills of the past, like skills which we have gained today, were the aptitude of the past. So, we had the aptitude, we developed our aptitude into a specific thing. Once we were trained, we acquired skills, and today's skills are a proof that at some point of time we had an aptitude towards that thing, and that's how we developed the knack for it, right? So, that's how you're supposed to connect with the given dimension. So Akula, just keep revising it. As I said, minimum 3 revisions, minimum 3. Go by the standard protocol, the practice which I had said. In When you are going by the standard practice, you will be able to catch up. So altitude means ability to learn. I mean, mind the word, like Ajay, you have written altitude, and altitude was associated with the success that you achieve in life. Yesterday, I had said aptitude plus attitude equals to altitude. Okay, so altitude is the success or the height you achieve in life. So aptitude can be changed into ability by doing hard work. Yes, definitely. Aptitude can become your ability when you are pursuing it with consistent work and hard work. So can we develop skills without aptitude? Yes, that's also possible. Again, that is because of the persistence and hard work, because I told you there are 3 things related to aptitude. First is correct identification of your aptitude, second is your motivation to resolve it, and third is the social, cultural, or economic environment. So there can be a possibility that a person is able to identify that I don't have a natural knack or a natural aptitude in a certain thing, like maybe it can be associated with acting, it can be associated with sports, it can be associated with multifarious things. Okay, so maybe a person is able to identify that I don't have an aptitude associated with a specific thing, then the person is realizing, but I'm motivated to become one. So like, let's say the person is motivated to become a writer, or the person is motivated to clear an exam, the person is motivated to let's say become a director, something like that. So the person joins like an academic orientation or a training program or a training school or something like that, consistently works hard to acquire the basic prerequisite skills, constantly works towards it, and over the time period develops that sense of, we can say, develops that sense of aptitude, and that sense of conviction when we are speaking of it. Okay, so with respect to it, when we are talking about the given dimension, um, you can understand that out of the 3, at least 2 are required. So even if you don't have the natural knack, but you're consistent to work hard, and the environment is conducive, the environment is ready to support you, in that situation also you can develop the specific aptitude. All right, so there are 2 ways of aptitude identification. The informal way, for informal way I gave you the example of Budhia Singh, and for formal way, when we are talking about it, it is associated with aptitude test or aptitude battery. In Bengal also there is a method of this aptitude test in an informal way. So in informal way, you can see that in Bengal, like once the child is born and the annaprashan happens, though, so in the similar manner, in like the way you introduce food, in the similar manner there is a tradition that you introduce a lot of things before a child to play with. So there will be different types of toys, pen, book, etc. And the toy that the child picks, or pen or book, whatever the child picks, it is indirectly an identification or an informal way of identification of what the child probably be. So if suppose if the child is picking a pen, so everyone presumes that, oh, the child is going to be a prolific writer, or some or official, because the child is lifting the pen. In the similar manner, if there is a specific toy that a child is picking, which is symbolic of something like the child is picking bat, so the child will become a cricketer. The child is picking like a football, so the child is going to be a footballer, so something like that. So you can just connect it with informal way of like aptitude identification when we speak of it. Okay, so when we are discussing about the very possibility associated with aptitude identification from the perspective of formal ways, so in formal ways we can connect it with aptitude test, which is also called aptitude battery in other words. So what is this aptitude test or aptitude battery, and how is it different from achievement test? So aptitude like a battery or aptitude test is associated with, like, a set of questions with which you are identifying a person's true aptitude. So we can say aptitude battery, with respect to this I can say that aptitude is tested formally tested through aptitude battery aptitude battery it tests, it means the aptitude battery. Okay, so it means aptitude battery. So it tests a large number of aptitudes at one time, large number of aptitudes at one time, with a series of tests for each aptitude. Okay, for each aptitude. So this is what we imply by aptitude test or aptitude battery. Okay, now when we are connecting this given dimension pertaining to achievement test is associated with what we have achieved in the past. So what we have achieved in the past is tested or judged with achievement test. With achievement test. Um, Again, with respect to this, I can say in order to understand the overall capability of a student, both tests are required. So we need to test what skills the child possesses from the past and what potential the child holds for the future. We need a combination of both. Okay, so you can see that before 2011 there was no CSAT, civil services aptitude test was not there. There was, we all know, UPSC had in paper 1 it was GS and paper 2 was optional. So optional with an objective motive. So there were chances of bias, there was chances of scaling, and children like being very thorough with their optional subject were getting a higher chance of getting selected. So hence when we are talking about this given possibility, so we all can see that before 2011, like the CSAT exam, when we are speaking of it, we can see that aptitude was not tested per se. Hence optional was later replaced in 2011 with CSAT. We can also see that in mains also 2013 onwards, one optional was replaced because there were two optionals earlier. So one optional was replaced, and it was replaced by a completely new paper, that is this one which we are dealing with, that is ethics. So ethics is associated with what? In mains, ethics becomes your aptitude test, whether you hold the potential to be an ethical person in future or not. Okay, and whether you are able to put ethics in application in future or not. So potential case studies are given, potential situations are given. Even in interview, you are given potential situation based questions, not just in the mains through ethics. So you can see that by giving those application based questions, the examiner is testing your reasoning skills, your presence of mind, your comprehension, your capability to interpret an issue thoroughly, right? So it is very important for you to understand the nature of the civil services exam, how it has moved, like, from achievement test. Because if you see earlier, when there was optional for prelims, it was achievement. Like, if you have studied that optional subject in graduation, or if you have prepared it well, you will be able to mark it well. Whereas in aptitude test, you are testing the potential possibilities of the future. Like, why do you give mathematics in the prelims? You give mathematics because if the child gets into account services or gets into revenue services, the child should be able to understand and interpret basic mathematics as a potential officer. The person should be able to, decode, or should be able to solve the potential possibilities pertaining to an officer. So that is the reason why such a possibility is incorporated. Why is comprehension incorporated in the syllabus? Because if a child is not capable to interpret language correctly, then in that case, a child won't be able to interpret what tender has been passed, what kind of application has been made, what kind of report has come from international bodies, what kind of suggestions have come from international bodies. So capability to interpret is very important for a civil servant to execute the policies accordingly. So that's why it got incorporated in the syllabus when we are speaking of it. So with respect to this given dimension, when we are talking about aptitude test and achievement test, so achievement test is the measurement of the extent till which you hold knowledge, you have knowledge of certain information or certain skill that you have acquired in the past. Okay, so it is like testing your skills from the past. And like achievement test is usually a result of past training, past skill being like acquired in a planned manner. So achievement test, and when we are talking about aptitude test, it is associated with the future skills that are required for the services. So do you have the basic traits of those skills or not? So those skills are put to test. So when we are hiring someone, we need to put both at test, like achievement test and aptitude test, to understand the present scenario as well as the future potential of a specific candidate. And when there is a combination of the both, that is aptitude test and achievement test, then only we are able to truly test the wholesome potential of a given person. Okay, so doesn't in-depth mathematics be injustice for humanities student rather than engineering ones? For that, Akula, I mean, this year they just broke the record by asking questions which even at least I know 18 IIT students who failed this year's CSAT because of paper 2, because they were unable to solve even the maths questions and they took comprehension very lightly. But when it comes to the component of maths being introduced in the dimension of your preparation, please be very clear, Akula, that maths was introduced, that is after 2010, in civil services aptitude test, for the simple reason that between, like, it was probably 2006 or 7, when what happened was that I still remember that I was at that time pursuing post graduation in one of the disciplines. So at that time, few of my seniors who had got selected, they went to Labasna and then they reported about this situation, that after the basic training was completed and people went as per their departments and orientations. So people who went for accountancy, so like there are departments associated with accountancy and auditing. So those who got the services related to accountancy and auditing, so those individuals, when they went, so they were hardcore humanities student. In old syllabus there was some basic statistics asked in mains. There was no role of mathematics in prelims. And in mains paper 2, there was only 2 GS papers. So in the second GS paper there was a bit of statistics, and that was so easy, so doable, that any person who was thorough with standard 8th or ninth level mathematics could do that level of statistics. So out of 80 marks, one could very easily score 60 to 70 marks. It was that like cakewalk. So these students, they could make it to the list. Though they went ahead, they got into this accountants, so this audit and accounting services. Now what happened was, because they were not very thorough with basic level mathematics, while they were being trained, they were unable to catch up with the requirement of the services. So, in the probation period, when they had to appear for tests and exams regularly, and I hope all of you are aware of this fact, that even if you get selected for civil services exam, but in the probation period, if anyone fails, then the person will be relegated. The person will not be finally put to office. The person will not be able to, you know gain security of job, means you will be kicked out of the services. So far it has never happened, but have people got into the situation that they have to repeat their probation period? Yes, that has happened. There have been 5 6 officers who have to repeat their probation period because they kept failing the exam. Okay, until and unless you don't pass the exam, you are not posted as an officer. Okay, so the probation exam is very important, and that is something which is making you finally an officer, and it is as important as clearing the civil services exam. So what happened in the period of probation, these officers, they sat down and they were unable to catch up with the accountancy and auditing classes that the professors who were coming from various central universities, that they were the lectures that they were giving, because these boys were from hardcore humanities background. Okay, Akula, so this is for your query primarily, and it is a generalized query. So I believe all of you can also connect with this. So what happened? These boys very smartly, they wrote against the teacher. So they wrote so they started a signature campaign, because all these tucha activities they learn from, like, school day, not school days, college days, or coaching institutes. So they did a signature campaign that will get the teacher only removed, say that the teacher is pathetic. So they did it once. So the, like, we can say that DOPT took cognizance of it, replaced the professor. Another professor came again after 2 3 weeks. They wrote against that professor. That person got changed again. Third one came. When these boys, after like almost 2.5 months or so, they wrote against this third professor, then they took this issue very seriously. That probably we are getting the best of the best minds of this country, and these boys are continuously rejecting that the professor doesn't know the things or cannot communicate powerfully, whereas the professor has international recognition, has submitted research papers in international journals, and the person has contributed meaningfully in university teaching. So how come the acumen of this professor is being questioned or put to test? So because of that, what happened was that you know these the DOPT wrote to UPSC, that what kind of officers are you hiring who are unable to cope up with basic mathematics, and they are unfit for like this accountancy and auditing services. So then, like, UPSC created a team, and a fresh team, and which reflected upon what kind of reforms are required in the examination. So then, aptitude is something which is required in civil services. If you have the aptitude, you will become a great officer. So the civil services aptitude test was introduced, which was associated with the future potential that you need to hold to become a great officer. And thus in your syllabus 7 subcomponents were introduced. So 2 were associated with comprehension. One was bilingual comprehension, which still exists, English language comprehension skills, which is there in syllabus on paper, but questions were discontinued 2015 onwards, after the CSAT campaign was carried forward. You might be in school days or so. So there was a all India campaign against CSAT, in which UPSC like discontinued with English language comprehension skills, which were easy, and it was, I would say, the most cakewalk questions in the entire paper. Then there were decision making questions, which were more like case studies, and you had to choose between the four options of decision that was being proposed. And the truth is, it was relatively again very easy, and there was no negative marking in decision making questions. But again, for past few years, UPSC is not asking the decision making questions, maybe because in mains through case studies that is put to test. Again, there was interpersonal and communication skills. There were theoretical questions asked associated with it for initial 2 3 years, but after that they discontinued with that as well. So what is left is, we can say, general mental ability. In common language you call it maths. There is data interpretation, which again you consider it to be a part of maths. And there is there is this analytical reasoning, so logical and analytical reasoning. So what is actually left is these four things out of the seven subtopics which are there in the syllabus. They have actually discontinued in terms of asking questions pertaining to English language comprehension skills, interpersonal and communication skills, and the third being decision making questions, though they are there in the syllabus. The rest four are asked. But through that, what is put to test? The future potential, the future, we can say, qualities that the we can say a DOPT or home ministry needs in potential officers, that is put to test through civil services aptitude test. And that is the reason why maths is there in the syllabus, or mathematics, or data interpretation, or we can consider general mental ability is there in the syllabus. The only challenge is the nature of mathematics that was asked this year. In fact, the trend started last year itself. So is that the level of standard 10th level? Because in bracket in the syllabus it's like 10th level, but the truth is it is not even of the level which probably engineers can solve. So that's also something which you can consider. We can say that every IIT student can crack the examination, even CSAT. No, I told you, 18 IIT students that I know failed the CSAT paper, and because of which their paper one did not get evaluated. I yet need to confirm how authentic this information is, but I heard, I mean, there's yet not a verifiable proof on the basis of which I could say, but I heard this, and along with that, another senior of mine who is ex principal secretary UPSC, he was also indicating or hinting something similar to it. It was said that out of 14 lakh students who appeared for no, 15 lakh appeared. So out of 15 lakh students who appeared for the prelims, 14 lakh 16,000 14 lakh 16,000 students were failed in CSAT itself. Only 86 or 84,000 copies were evaluated, that is paper 1, out of which almost 12,000 students are getting an opportunity to write mains. So that was the condition. So you can connect it with the possibility associated with civil services aptitude test. Ajay, we were discussing about CSAT, and that is an example of formal ways of aptitude, right? So all that I was discussing was actually an example of formal way, right? So the formal way is associated with aptitude test or aptitude battery. You can see that. And when I was discussing about CSAT, okay, it is one of the formal ways to test your aptitude. Okay, so voices are raised to reduce 33% to 23% criteria for clearing CSAT. Well, that's all. That is something which we need to see what's going to happen. uh, Commerce students had better chance to clear CSAT. Well, no comments on that. Second, ARC has also recommended reforms for UPSC. Yes, so true. And it is considered that soon maybe a team shall be formed and some kind of reform can be incorporated. Even people are saying that uh, you know certain redundancy can be removed. Some people are also suggesting that maybe optional, but please don't take my words, I'm not saying it's getting removed, though I also teach optional subject. But many people say that to do away with the subjectivity and scaling, maybe in future, not immediately, maybe 4 years, 5 years, or sometime down the lane, whensoever it will happen, it will be officially announced. So it is being considered about the validity of optional subject as well. Instead of that, some other papers pertaining to law and administration would be incorporated. So a lot of speculation is going on what all can happen, but you just have to focus on the syllabus and the advertisement of a specific year that you are going to appear, and you are going to reflect upon the given possibility related to it. SME, please help Ajay with aptitude and attitude. I have discussed it quite a number of times yesterday, and I had also drawn it in the PPT. So, because it seems he has not revised it, so please help him with that. Okay. If 20% is done, then it will become less. We're not speculating what will happen, okay, when we are talking about this given possibility. So, yeah, whatever, 14,000 or 12,000, whatever it is, but let's see. Yes, the parliamentary committee is also looking into the possibility of reducing the time period so that the youth is not wasting its years into this. So that's also there. Yes, Akula, my company has collaborated with it. Okay, so that's also there. This year, I'm collaborating with it. So I have my online platform. They have their offline venture. Both ways we are like managing it. Yesterday's ARM is not uploaded. Well, I think SME can support you with that. Um, 2023 results are out. Even if the cutoff is reduced, will there be an opportunity to write? Oh, well. No comments about, like, with respect to what possibilities can unfold, but what has been declared as a result is the final possibility that you need to connect with. Now, with respect to this aptitude battery, which we were discussing about it, and with respect to this, when we are connecting it with civil services aptitude test. So aptitude battery, all of you can understand, it is associated with the formal way to identify the aptitude in a person. So aptitude for civil services, when we speak of it, we can understand that aptitude will be physical aptitude as well as mental aptitude. When we are speaking of physical aptitude, that will be associated with specific services, like services pertaining to police services, or maybe to a certain extent, if there is some we can say associated with patrolling or some kind of protections associated with like railways or revenue, then in that case also some kind of physical training would be required when we are talking about it. So mm in mains ethics paper is also aptitude battery. Yes, in mains ethics paper is an aptitude battery, because in mains earlier there were two optional papers, as I had shared with you. In our times, before our times, our seniors, there were two optional subjects that had to be prepared, not one optional subject. Two optional subjects, so in total four papers, and there were two GS papers. So what UPSC did was, UPSC removed one optional subject, the two papers of one optional subject, and instead introduced like two more GS papers. So there are four GS papers in totality when we are speaking of it. So that's how we are able to make it, or that's how we are able to pull it forward when we discuss about this given scenario. All right. So with respect to aptitude, when we are speaking of it, so aptitude can be both when we are speaking of this aptitude in civil services. So we can see there has to be certain physical aptitude, and that will be associated with police services, and there has to be some mental aptitude. And mental aptitude is first and foremost like general mental ability, if you can think of it. So that's something there in the CSAT syllabus, right? And we can also see mental aptitude is also tested in mains through, we can consider, ethics paper. In ethics paper, you are testing the foundational values of civil services in a student, we can consider that. Okay, so foundational values for civil servants. So in mains, this is tested in ethics, GS paper 4, when we are reflecting upon it. And the foundational values in civil services also tests, we can say, the means value and the ends value. Remember, means associated with deontology and ends was associated with teleology, right? So means value is tested, whereby it is tested whether you have an understanding of code of conduct or not, and ends value whether you have an understanding of values from the constitution or not. Values from the constitution, right? So that is how your aptitude is put to test. So values is something which is like mentioned in your syllabus, and it is derived from the recommendations of second ARC. Okay, so here I have given you some like basic insight pertaining to it. So you can see over here the second ARC in its report ethics in governance talks about a comprehensive civil services code. And when we are talking about this, that there should be some civil services code, it is conceptualized at three levels. So at the apex level or at the highest level when we are speaking of it, so like at the apex level we can see that there should be a clear and concise statement of values and ethical standards that a civil servant should imbibe. So this is like values, and we can consider ethical standards, right? So values with ethical standards, that's something which is tested at top level. That's why through essay, through ethics paper, through interview, this is what is put to test. And every day I inspire you to become more ethical, to become more upright, to become more punctual, disciplined, having more alertness, having right choice of words. What is the reason? The reason is I aspire to build that civil services aptitude in you. Okay, and the highest level of aptitude is having the right set of values and ethical standards. So these values should be reflecting the public expectations which is there from a civil servant. So the public expectation will be associated with what? It will be associated with the civil services values, and that is like political impartiality, maintenance of higher ethical standards, accountability. All this is civil services values at the second level. So at the second level, what do we see? At the second level, there is a broad principle which talks about governing the behavior of a civil servant, and it is associated with code of ethics, means how a civil servant ought to behave. What is the right or wrong way for a civil servant to behave? So a broader framework we can consider. So code of ethics, code of ethics. And at the third level there is like there is specificity, like for example, do not accept gifts which are like more than 5,000 rupees. So that is what code of conduct, where there is specificity of do's and don'ts. So that is code of conduct, right? And in which there is very clearly, like very precisely, in a very unambiguous manner, means very clearly at this third level we all can see that the segment is given, that what ought to be done, what is the acceptable behavior, what is the unacceptable behavior for a civil servant. At we can also see the second ARC, okay, has also recommended that the values and the code of ethics, what the values and the code of ethics be, with the legal backing, with the statutory backing, by including them in the proposed civil services bill. Okay, so that is also something which we all can consider. Azhar, the subject is most tricky only till the time you don't study. When you study this, you realize it is far more scoring than GS paper 1, 2, and 3. In GS paper 1, 2, and 3, generally students, like good students, will score something around 110, 115. This paper, if you are really good, you can get 130, 135. On a high side, students in the past have also scored up to 148. Okay, so what is in fact 153 also I've seen. So what is, but If I don't talk about the rare phenomena, if I talk about regular phenomena, getting 130 plus is possible. So until and unless you don't love a subject, you cannot develop a knack in it. And anything, like when you were a child, maybe maths was tough, maybe science was tough, maybe literature was tough, maybe like your vernacular language was tough. So when you get introduced to anything, like when human child was introduced to walking and rising up against the gravity, the moment the child stood up, the child started crying before the mother. Hold me, I can't even, like, balance my body. And the child cried, and the legs were aching, the joints were aching. The child took, like, some steps forcibly and struggled to maintain the physical balance, if you can recall and remember, right? So there was so much of strain, there was so much of struggle associated with the physical composure, if you can recall, right? But if your mother would have picked you, oh, my child, let the child not like stand up because it's painful for him or her, the person would have become crippled. So it is important to undergo the pain, the discomfort when you are introducing yourself to a new skill set which improves your existence. In the similar manner, ethics, mentally, intellectually, spiritually, okay, it is going to improve you as a person, your existence. I cannot say that about economy or IR, okay, because briefly even I know those subjects, right? But I can say that for ethics, ethics is the paper that even beyond civil services, it has the capability to fix a human personality, capability to fix the human thought process, okay? So you should, if you really love this subject, you will have a tendency to like not only get better marks than all the rest of the 3 GS papers, uh, but also you, this paper, the preparation of this paper is going to build as a content supporter in terms of essay as well. It is going to help you to like handle your interview, civil services interview, in a smarter way, with a better knack, with better precision, okay? So that's also there when we are speaking of it. So I'm going to appear in 2026. Does UPSC have any chance to reform the syllabus? Okay. Akula or any other student who's appearing in 2026, you can take it in written from me. Ethics is not going anywhere. Okay. Ethics shall remain. If there will be any structural reforms, like, they will introduce some new subjects and maybe they can reduce the component of optional. That's the only possibility. And if they'll introduce subjects, there'll be a high possibility of certain components of law and administration to be incorporated, because the job is of civil services. So law and administration are two segments which can further be expanded, because in terms of law, there is just a sneak peek in polity, and in terms of administration, we can see a sneak peek in governance. And governance, you barely get 40-50 marks question. So these are the areas where probably something more can be done, or a new sub-segment or a paper can be introduced. Yes, something associated with the growing intervention of artificial intelligence and the possibility of creativity, because AI can work on the past data, permutation, combination of the past data, and that's how it can create uh, a creative concoction of what ought to be there. So that's also there when we are speaking of it. So, with respect to CSAT difficulty, well, Utkarsh, what actually is required is be thorough with comprehension. Comprehension is going nowhere. I've seen students interpreting questions so pathetically for even essay. Like one sentence you have to interpret. On the basis of interpretation of one sentence, you have to create a content of 16, 17 pages. If you interpret that sentence incorrectly, the content you will produce in 16 to 17 pages will be relatively pathetic. That's like implicit, inherent, isn't it? So that's the game. When I'll be taking the essay classes, that will be for evening batch, 31st to 7th, somewhat like that, of August. So 31st of July to 7th of August. So at that time period, after completing this portion of ethics, when I'm taking that, you will get to understand this, that when in CSAT, a person is having pathetic level of comprehension and is overconfident that with maths I'll be able to pull through. Maths is not asked in mains level, but comprehension continues. because interpretation of language continues. And a student who struggles with poor interpretation of language will struggle to interpret the essay topics, will struggle to interpret mains questions, will struggle to interpret even questions raised in the interview. So that's what. Sneak peek means झांक लेना, थोड़ा सा हल्का सा दिख जाना. Okay. Sneak means when you are secretively or in a hidden format you are looking at. Peeking means when you are just getting a glimpse of something. Okay. So, well, Shanwaz, presently, as per my availability, taking 3 batches in a day is already getting tedious. Within a week, I'm feeling the fatigue. So that's why I agreed for one of the batches, that is the evening batch as of now. Okay, because there is optional batch also in the afternoon, so it becomes really hectic. Starting the day at 4:15 and reaching home at quarter to 10 almost. Okay, so it gets really very hectic. With little breaks in between, you can hardly sleep, you hardly feel like eating, you're continually working, because before and after the session also, it's not that we are chilling. At least I keep thinking and working upon the content, that what more examples, what is happening in and around us. And for optional subject, even though it's been more than 12 years, I still keep reading, still keep reflecting, still keep adding, even if it is a para, even if it is an insight, even if it is an example. But batch after batch, I like keep preparing myself to become a better version of myself. And that's why it's not easy. So after your batch, I'll take a half an hour break, I'll eat something, I'll take 1 hour nap, and then I'll just start studying. And then at 1 o'clock there is the session, continues till 3:30, queries till 4 o'clock. I just like leave, I reach here 4:15, have my lunch till 5, sorry, till 4:30, half an hour break, 5 o'clock to 8:30 again the session, and then 1 hour of traveling. So it's pretty hectic, trust me. So taking to like 2 sessions as morning evening is very very impossible. So that's what we can consider. You can mail me, Deepika. Okay. So anyone who's like talking about optional, you can just mail me. This is not the time and place to discuss about it. So that's what I can support you over there via mail. Voluntary community service should be done by a civil servant. Yes, definitely, because that shows, that exhibits the value of compassion, the value of empathy. Okay, so that's what. Um, then after that, uh, okay, great. So Azhar, you can just like text it. I'll just take care of it. So when all of you are getting the importance of aptitude for civil services and the basics are getting filled, we can see that the second ARC has also recommended values associated with like the code of ethics, and it has given a statutory backing, a legal backing in the proposed civil services bill, that what kind of values ought to be expected. So the recommendations of second ARC 10th report regarding values needed for civil services, if we look into it, it is objectivity, there is empathy and compassion, there is integrity, there is commitment to public good, and there is impartiality and non-partisanship. So here onward, we all can reflect upon the mail ID. So okay. So with respect to the recommendations of second ARC, when we are reflecting upon the civil services values, there is also tolerance, which is given in your syllabus. If you see the civil services syllabus pertaining to like what is there to be prepared, you'll realize that like the component of tolerance is also incorporated. So now as we open and we start discussing about values meant for civil services, you will be able to understand how to approach ethics subject. Ajay, if you missed the first session, the very first day, then another window to reflect upon it is, that is 12th of August. I'll be starting the weekend batch. So live, you can listen to it on Saturday, how to approach ethics as a subject. My initial 1 hour, the first 1 hour of teaching the ethics paper, before I start teaching the chapter, I first discuss the approach. So you can just listen to that. That will fix your basics. So which subject are you taking? That's sociology. Sociology is the thing. Now, Okay, the recording is also available. ठीक है, देख ले वो first lecture सुन ले वहाँ से, ठीक है. So is there any current affairs questions from here? Well, current affairs can be connected whereby some, like, immediate real life situation is put to case studies, or some immediate real life situation is put for you, and you have to evaluate it from ethical perspective. That's the space and scope. Majority of the time it is associated with the theoretical concerns. Now, as we are going to speculate about civil services values, we reflect the backing of it, that from where are we gaining our understanding of civil services values. So when we are seeing it, as I said, that it is in the second ARC. So in the second ARC, the report related to ethics in governance, we find the details related to it. We find that it is coming from the Nolan Committee of UK. The suggestions of Nolan Committee from UK also inspired the, we can say, the second ARC, the second Administrative Reforms Commission, to consider what kind of values are required for civil services in India. So, it was a very comprehensive report presented by the Nolan Committee. Nolan Committee can be quoted in the exam, and it does fetch you marks because it shows that you are a well-read person. You are having the theoretical backing of the concepts which we are discussing. So the committee laid down the standards which are required for a civil servant to exercise his or her conduct in public life. Okay, so first and foremost, the value that is laid down by Nolan Committee is selflessness. Selflessness means you should not hold the public office due to any material interest or personal interest or for favoritism. Any kind of personal interest should not be involved. There should be a sense of service when you are going ahead with the possibility. Again, the another segment which you can see is integrity. So in integrity, it is expected that the public service that you are performing, it is not under any kind of obligation towards anyone. No kind of obligation is held towards any individual or organization. You're not bound by any individual or organization. You are just going ahead with a sense of uprightness and a highest sense of, we can say, honesty, which is also referred as integrity. Objectivity, when we are talking about it, so objectivity is looking into the merits of the case. What is the merit of the case? And on the basis of the merits of the case, the facts of the case, logically reasoning it out and accordingly taking the decision. Whether it is appointment of your juniors, whether it is hiring of officials, whether it is taking a decision in a crisis stuck situation, whatever it is. But when you are looking into the merits of this situation, the factual aspects of the situation, you are logically interpreting it, and then you are taking decision. Then in that situation, you exercise an objective behavior. Again, accountability is being responsible to what you are doing. When you are holding the sense of responsibility, whereby you feel accountable or responsible for all the decisions that you take, holding the public office, that is how you become accountable. So openness is associated with transparency. At all times, people should be aware of the decisions that you are taking. Rather than restricting information, all the possibility, all the information which is required for the larger public to know, you should be capable to disclose that information to the people, so that they have an idea what you are deciding, why you are deciding, and what perspectives you hold, and what kind of future possibilities of action you can take. So also, what is the government doing, what are the decisions taken by the government, and what are the probable interventions which the government may hold. So that's there, associated with openness. Again, honesty. So honesty is associated with definitely integrity, transparency, accountability. They are one and the same. They are manifestation of the one and the same issue. So honesty, when you are honest, you are able to uphold public interest at all times. You never compromise with your private interest, or you never try to make benefit out of a situation. So leadership, under leadership also we can see that the broader principles are upheld, in which One takes care of the public office and all the possibilities pertaining to the public office. With respect to, again, we can say the aptitude required for civil services when we are discussing about it. So, this is what was proposed in the draft of Public Services Bill in 2007. So, it was stated that what kind of values are required for civil services and how a civil servant is supposed to discharge their functions accordingly. So, the components that were incorporated were patriotism, allegiance to the constitution, objectivity, impartiality, honesty, diligence, courtesy, and transparency. Then maintaining absolute integrity. So these are certain components which are a part of aptitude for civil services when we speak of it. Okay, so the four components which were incorporated in the draft of Public Services Bill. So integrity, patriotism. So what is patriotism? Upholding the national interest. This is the definition as given in the Public Services Bill, not the narrow definition of patriotism per se. It is like performing utmost service in national interest. Okay, it is also like always adhering to the constitution, allegiance to the constitution, and then objectivity, impartiality, honesty, diligence, courtesy, and transparency. A lot of values incorporated in one go, and then integrity. Okay, so at that time when we speak of it, despite not having a distinct or a specific code of ethics for public services, these segments which are there, they somewhere directly or indirectly, or in other words explicitly or inexplicitly, when we or implicitly when we are speaking of it, they are associated with the values which are expected from a civil servant. Okay, so we can also see that it is expected that at all times you should be the protector of the constitution. At all times you should keep up with the values of the constitution. Again, the major constitutional values which should be safeguarded by a civil servant. Okay, so the major constitutional values which is expected from you at all times when you are in the services or aspire to be in the services is: first, respect the sovereignty. At no point of time you should be you should know how to tackle terrorists and Naxalites or any person who's threatening the sovereignty of the country. You can use soft power, you can use smart power, you can use we can consider all versions of we can say uh, cooperation and we can say intervention as per the requirement of the situation. So you can use military power, you can use soft power, you can use smart power, all kinds of interventions, but you should never ever speak a language or think of a language which compromises with the sovereignty, like supporting the Khalistan movement and saying let it become an independent area, supporting the movement in Manipur or in Nagaland and saying that let the area become independent, or the Dravid Nadu movement or movement in Kashmir and encouraging that let the regions become independent. So that is not something which you are supposed to speak. If that is your stance, then it's better you become a politician, or it's better that you become a social reformer, you become an academician, like a free thinker, basically. Then you will have the intellectual space to speak out your own perspective, your own design, your own method of interpretation of what is there and what ought to be there. But if you are aspiring to be in the services, at all times you should upkeep the constitutional values. And one of the values is sovereignty. In no case, in no situation, you should be open to compromise with the sovereignty of the country. Okay, so you have to definitely take care of the human rights at all times, but still, along with the human rights, you have to understand that human rights is not against the sovereignty of the country. It is in consonance with the sovereignty of the country, and protecting and upkeeping the sovereignty of the country is a part of national interest, and it should always be respected in all situations. Okay, courage and fortitude are also important, Hardeep. courage and fortitude are also important, and so are few other, we can consider, civil services values. I will provide a list, I will provide some notes which will be updated in the ARM, that is the, we can consider the, like, the material that gets uploaded, the additional reading material. So you'll get some material in civil services values, it's simply written. So there you will find that other than these core values which we are discussing, in other values, courage is also one of the value, and similarly you'll find some other miscellaneous values as well. But the most important one, the core ones, are what we are discussing. And the core ones are the ones which we'll be discussing in greater detail, as it is proposed by, we can say, the second ARC. The second ARC recommending the core values to be kept in civil services are the ones which are also there in your syllabus, and we will be elaborating, like integrity, like dedication, like words pertaining to, we can say, impartiality and non-partisanship. So all that I will be discussing soon, after discussing what are the constitutional values which a civil servant needs to upkeep at all times. Again, you can see socialism when we are speaking of it. So socialism, it is associated with, like, controlling the, like, government is controlling the means of production and then is distributing it for the development of the society. It is like creating the possibility of a justified society where all human beings have at least access to basic resources or basic means of existence and survivability. All right, again, when we are speaking of the component of secularism, secularism is like the state is not discriminating any individual on the basis of religion. Similarly, you have to uphold the values of democracy. Now, all of you put this thing into test in your own heart. Do you upkeep sovereignty in the heart of your heart? Do you believe in socialism in the heart of your heart, whereby justified access to resources should be there for all communities in India? Do you hold secularism in your heart? So, anytime you're making biased comments or biased statement for different communities living in different regions, you actually fail the constitutional value. And that is the reason why, when once in a while I see some student casually hinting or casually passing a remark against any, we can consider, against any religion or against any community in India, then I get triggered. I'm like, huh, I am aspiring to make them civil servants, and these people are not even upholding the constitutional value, which is one of the core markers of becoming a civil servant. I hope now you can sense it. All those students who speak once in a while against specific communities, why it is a trigger factor, right? All of you are able to see this, understand this. Yes, these words are also there in the preamble, but how many people actually have that component of darshan dhyan karma towards preamble? Majority of you know the words that they are there in the preamble, but imbibing the words in your thought process, introspecting upon the relevance of those words, the impact of those words, the possibility of those words, why they were incorporated, and what kind of impact they create if it is lived by all citizens at all times, and the, we can say, the aftermath, the impact of it. So when that is created, it is then that you actually learn how to think and behave like a civil servant. Okay. So democracy means rule by people, and that is participative democracy. But is it being implemented in real? There are so many things, Utkarsh, which we are in the process of realization. But we have taken formidable steps in last 70 plus years, which is, I would say, far more successful than many experiments across the world. Okay, so rather than seeing the limitations, let us see the possibilities and how far we have come, and then identify what more needs to be done. That's the optimistic way to look like upon things, because in optimism you do not deny or you do not ignore the negativities or the challenges, but like noticing them, you try to pave a way for the future, which does like tries to do away with the negative possibilities which are like sithering or which are simmering. Okay, so with respect to this, when we are talking about it, we can also see the component of republic, justice, equality and fraternity also given as like your constitutional values. So when we say republic, the supreme power lies in the body of citizens. So at any given point of time, if any leader says that I am India, or I am the face of India, or tries to portray that the person is, like, omnipotent, omnipresent, shall never go, or shall at all times be present, you need to understand it is the people and their choice that shall prevail at all times. No feudal lord, no princely state ruler, no political leader is over and above people. Okay. Similarly, the idea of justice, justice, which in other words implies fairness, whereby everyone is the same under the rule of law. So, when justice has to prevail, then only social progress shall be experienced or articulated when we are talking about it. Equality in terms of status and opportunity, okay, justice in terms of social, economic, and political aspiration, and fraternity means brotherhood. And when brotherhood is there, then there is dignity of all individuals. So when we say fraternity, again the same thing, when you are not having a healthy opinion, a balanced opinion towards all communities, when you don't have a balanced opinion towards all, we can say, communities living in India, that is something which is against the spirit of fraternity and dignity for all. Okay, so I hope all of you are getting a basic preview related to constitutional values which have to be upheld at all times. Along with that, the civil services values which we are going to start with. So first and foremost, when we are beginning with the foundational values for civil services, we need to understand that what the foundational values are. So I have already discussed foundational values, like with all of you, when I was discussing about the civil services values that are needed. So for example, Gandhi considered truth as the highest value, and like following non-violence. So Bhagat Singh was an atheist, he did not believe in God, and Gandhi in his last moments, like last few years of his life, he said truth is God. So rather than talking about an abstract version of God, he said the truth is God. So you can understand that truth being considered as highest form of value. In the similar manner, in democratic culture, when we are like upholding sovereignty, okay, when we are like considering that the values, though they are contextual, they should be in the larger interest of the society. So in that possibility, we can consider that like the foundational values of civil services, which are given in the second ARC, are laying down the foundations, the stepping stones associated with what ought to happen and what we ought to live when we are speaking of it with respect to this. Venkat, just mail me. When you are mailing me, I will be responding to it. All right. I won't be discussing about optional right now. Okay. So since the human beings have embraced the spirit of capitalism even in India after 1991, how relevant is the component of socialism in today's time? Well, Sriram, despite embracing capitalism, we want that if a poor person is struggling, the state shall come forward and support the person. Despite capitalism, which is existing, the role of welfare state cannot be denied, because in any capitalist state, because everyone cannot compete in the market in a fair manner, in a healthy manner. So all those who are left behind in the competition, the welfare state is there to protect and propagate their rights. So the role of the welfare state, as it is performed, tends to protect and propagate the values of socialism, isn't it? I hope, Sriram, that is understood. Since human, I think it's like words of Ramakrishna when Vivekananda asked him that, have you seen God? Okay, all right. So ethics subject is easy or not easy. Kanak, if you are regular in the class, you'll get your answer. Okay. So you just have to be regular in the class. So your friends, they send the laughing emoticon, because those who are regular, they understand what I imply to say. Means there are so many implicit ways of expressing things sometimes. Will we lie in the name of nation? Well, it is the larger objective that has to be taken care of, Shanavaz. So sometimes you have to go with deontological approach, sometimes with teleological approach. So if in the larger interest of your country, if you have to safeguard a post or a position, and for that if you are captured by the enemy, and speaking the lie is the way by which you can uphold the larger interest of your country, then in that situation lie here is not like non virtuous act. In that situation, going by the teleological approach, that will be a virtuous act to be done, because we should always see the larger purpose of dealing with things. Yes, you can also connect like government of India supporting MSMEs or informal sector or making laws. All that is also to bring social justice. So can I write my own definition written in polity? Why will you write your own definition, Shalu, when there are so many people for decades together working to give a formal official academic definition to technical terms? So why do you want to put your innocent brain to action with limited capacity of wisdom? Let the work be done by the academicians and seniors. They have done so much of, I would say, good quality research and thought provoking reflections, and then they have given a definition. So it's easy to remember a handful of words. And as you memorize, initially, you memorize and you do rote learning, and it is very mechanical. But with several repetitions, you start getting into the core of the meaning, the soul of the meaning. Why in a definition specific set of words are included and other words are not included. And as you understand the soul of the meaning, you realize that why definitions are so formal, so absolute, and so perfect when given by academicians. Okay, Shalu, I hope that's clear. So that's there. Jargons are technical terms. So can I write under this done? Can we place our opinion while writing questions? You can place your opinions while writing questions in ethics paper. They should be backed by ethical concerns. One. Second, you get more opportunity to provide your opinion when there is critically analyze, critically reflect, or comment. Okay. In those terms, you get more intellectual space and freedom to write your opinions. All right. And this is who was asking that? Yeah. So Abhinash, as you are asking this question, this also applies to GS paper 1, 2, 3, as well as optional paper. Whenever there is a word like critically analyze or specially comment, you get the intellectual space to incorporate your own opinions. Now at present, are we moving from mixed economy more towards capitalism? We are still mixed economy with inclination towards capitalism. Okay. What does it imply? Civil services are contextual to culture. Civil services are contextual to culture because, contextual to time, contextual to culture, because you can understand that with the change in time, the decision making capability shall change. Like, let us say 3 decades back, if a civil servant was reported about, like, let's say a transgender marriage taking place, or like, let's say a trans relationship in a community, the person was supposed to take an action, right? And the person was supposed to bring those people in custody. But today the action will differ, isn't it? Courtesy decriminalizing section 377. So that's why it becomes contextual to time. At all times, the purpose is to maintain law and order. That's the larger ideal. But in the process of maintaining law and order, the way we exercise, that is something which differs, right? Again, uh, determinism, I think, where action is determined by object, purpose, and situation. On the basis of that, human activities are. This is like not a question, ma'am. Case study of Olympics in China. Cute girl is forced to mime at Olympics in China after banned 7 years with crooked teeth. Is it right? Well, when we are speaking of it, there are a lot of unethical practices that will come from different parts of the world, including India and China. Okay. So, isn't bulldozer policy unethical? Yeah, it is unethical, beyond doubt. Okay. If the encroachment is removed under law, because there is illegal encroachment, then that will be like legal. But when it is done, it has to be pre-announced. There is a protocol how to go ahead with the bulldozer. You have to first publish it in the local newspaper, vernacular newspaper, 6 months in advance. Okay, you have to keep the people, like, see how bulldozer works. If you are not aware of it, there are three types of slums. There are authorized slums, which are legal and the paperwork is neat, and the people living in those slums, they have a legal proof of residing in that area, and they can sell and purchase the property. Okay, so that's authorized slum, that's a legal slum. Then we have recognized slum. So recognized slum are not legal, but the government has announced that it will authorize it soon, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, but it will be like authorized. It will be, the legal ownership will be created. And generally in authorized slum and recognized slum, you will see the informal sector living, like we can say the drivers, the cleaners, the helpers. Okay, then comes the third category, the notified slum. The notified slums are the notorious one. Suddenly, after few months, you will see in a specific area, some 20 or 40 odd huts will spring up. The government takes notice of it, that on the government land, few huts or few odd constructions have come up, which is an illegal confiscation of land. In that situation, a legal notice is passed, and along with that, in the local newspapers as well as police walas do an announcement through microphone that this is illegal encroachment, and in future some formal action would be taken, so it is advisable not to stay. So that's the first step. The second step is to publish it in the newspaper, that by what time period the bulldozer would work or the area will be shaved off. Okay, and then after that, a month before such an act, again the announcement is done in the public newspapers, and again a week before the thing, again the public announcement is done by the police walas, and then finally the bulldozer act is performed. So it's not that you are like being in the system, you don't have the legal authority to use the bulldozer, but there is a systematic order how it is used, where it is used, and what is the purpose of it. The rundown areas of the slums, which are also called notified slums, are the places where you'll find a lot of criminals, petty indulging in petty crimes, like you can say people who are into pickpocketing, or you will also see begging, or other kinds of miscellaneous activities living over there. And it is the notified slum which is the breeding ground for all kinds of crime and corruption. Okay, so I hope all of you are getting some idea. So bulldozer, when you are talking about the bulldozer like approach, um, you have to be aware that like using bulldozer is legal. It is under the rule of law, but there is a way how to use it. If you surpass the law and the stages, then it comes under the scanner whether it was ethical to do it, even if it was announced earlier that it is an illegal encroachment. But were the steps followed, and if they were not followed, then was some kind of partisan behavior exercised in the situation. Okay, so they are also using bulldozers to punish criminals rather than waiting for judiciary. Yeah, a lot of things are being done, what to say. So now please SDM Jyoti Maurya, I've already discussed her concerns. Nehalata, you should have been present yesterday. Yesterday only some student had brought it, as far as I can remember, and I discussed about her. So your bad, you were absent. Okay, now with respect to this, in that moment, maybe you are present at all times, but you were absent in that moment. Okay, so it's like, setting the wrong example for the society, because you are a symbolic person, like the kind of person I would be. I'll be inspiring a lot of girls in terms of my neighborhood, my vicinity, my surroundings, maybe as an alumni to my college, maybe the area in which I live, so my immediate neighborhood. Okay, neighborhood in my I would say uh, township where I was born and brought up, where my parents are staying. So that's there. So my conduct at all times, if it is in such a manner that it is motivating for others, then that is something which will be considered ethical, especially when you are in a responsible position where people look up to you. And if in those situations, if you go a little casual and you are like, I have my private life and private interest, that's fine, that's also true. But the truth is, when I said this thing, that civil servants are the friend, philosopher and guide, and when this essential message is lost, it is then that patterns of deviance can occur. And who says that it is only the responsibility of a girl? It is also the responsibility of a boy. And we have seen that men also cheating upon their partners, leaving their partners after getting selected. In fact, I know one of the fellows, I won't take his name, I mean, it's unnecessary, but that fellow, he got selected in revenue services. He won it, he was in a live-in relationship. It is 2016 that I'm talking about. So he was in a live-in relationship with his partner, and after he got selected, he said that, okay, bye, we had enough of good time, and now I won't marry you. So she was like, but you promised to marry me, and that's why we stayed for almost 2 years. So he was like, yeah, but now I'll get married to a selected girl, why will I get married to you? So this girl, she had enough proofs pertaining to they staying together, proofs pertaining to he like promising her that they shall get married. And then he, in the name of marriage, if you get into a relationship that surmounts to rape and abuse, okay, so she filed a rape case, and she also filed that she has been cheated, and the unethical conduct that has been performed by that guy. And after fighting that case, she also brought the DOPT to notice that this is how this guy is. And as the report went to the Home Ministry and the DOPT, you'll be surprised to know that if you have an FIR against your name, and if you are proved as a criminal, if you are proved that, before getting into the services, before completing your probation, if you are proved that you have been into an illegal conduct, then your services are cancelled. And that's what happened. This guy was removed from revenue services, then he started teaching in the coaching industry. But that's there. And when I heard about it, when I got to read about it, the details of the report, the facts of the case, so that's also there. So today you are reading about Jyoti Maurya, but there are so many other people also with respect to this. Now, anyway, when we are talking about this given dimension, let us move ahead with that. So, ma'am, then he married the girl. No, definitely. The relationship gets so tattered. Marriage is not the ultimate aim. The aim is to maintain balance in life, isn't it? So, once the balance is disturbed, how can you resolve it and get back to the person? So, she was like, if you are going to cheat upon me, just because you are getting into the services, I shall ensure that the services does not stay with you. So, all that also happens. So, uh, with respect to this, that's associated with sexual abuse and mental abuse, Chandrahas. Okay. So when they are for living relationship, after witnessing such frauds, well, live-in relationship is, I would say, there is a legal freedom and intellectual freedom. If people are losing integrity or don't have that ethics, that's individual a problem. Because you know a handful of failed cases, you should not deny the fact that there are a lot of successful cases as well. One of my senior professors, when I was pursuing graduation, imagine, I'm talking about 2000, okay, in the year 2000, we had a professor who was at that time in a live-in relationship for 7 years. Later she had a child also, and now it's been more than 30 years that she has lived in that live-in relationship successfully. Yet another professor, other than this lady professor, another retired professor, senior professor, who's also presently teaching at Ashoka University, so he is also in a relationship, a live-in relationship for past 23 years. So you all are aware of the failed relationship because of the crime and sensationalism created by these people. But there are a lot of people who are in such relationships, living peacefully and successfully for more than decades. They just don't want to indulge into a socially sanctioned relationship whereby they are seeking approval of the society, for the simple reason that despite societal approval, if the vivacity of the relationship is lost, the relationship cannot survive. There is so much of social approval by parents and relatives and family and larger society and band, baja, barat and dhoom dhadaka. But then what happens if the partner, either of the partner cheats? Can you stop the relationship from growing bitter or sour? obviously the relationship will be like in tatters, isn't it, when we are speaking of this given dimension. So that's what you can connect with when we are speaking of this given dimension. So do not generalize. There is so much happening in the world. You need to develop a broader worldview to know and understand so much happens and so much less that we know, isn't it? And it is sensationalism which reaches us first and all the more when we are talking about it. So now, don't they private life influencing public relationship? Yes, yes, yes. Private life does influence public relationship sometimes, and public life also influences private relationship, like police officers not being able to give time to their partners, their children, and that also leads to bitterness in their private lives. So, like vice versa. Okay. Now, so as we are further substantiating the component of foundational values for civil services, we all can see why do we need the foundational values. So we need the civil servants to hold important fiduciary positions. Fiduciary means involving trust. So positions of trust that civil servants need to hold. That's why there will be special powers and special obligations. Obligations means responsibilities while they are performing their act, whereby they are holding entrusted positions. Okay. So you can see that they provide like deliver services, and they have to take very important decisions. So because of which we need to see that there has to be values. In the absence of values, their decision making can be maligned, their capability to deliver services can be biased or based on favoritism, their capability to exercise obligations or exercise their power can get manipulated or affected. Henceforth, civil services values are required for the civil servants at all times, so that they are able to hold their public position with responsibility and trust. Okay. So with respect to this, I have given you some extra like information, like details of it, like fairness and impartiality shall be there, confidence in the decision making process, integrity in the decision making process shall be there at all times. You can also see that civil servants are expected to maintain professionalism, responsiveness, impartiality. Impartiality is also associated with objectivity when we are speaking of this given subsegment. So that's something which comes when civil services values are there, and because of which we can see the democratic political functions will be taken care of in a formidable manner. So as we are like substantiating this given dimension, I have given you some important core civil services values which we will be like discussing about. You can see anonymity, just the way one of your friends asked that, ma'am, is courage a civil services value? Similarly, anonymity is also a civil services value. Means you should not try to portray yourself as male Singham or lady Singham, and you should not try to hog all the limelight and power and try to become like, a mini celebrity kind of a thing. One should always try to understand that the system is functional as a like, as a wholesome framework, or as a wholesome effort by all the people belonging to the hierarchy of power. So when everyone is working in the hierarchy of power, you can see that the possibility of functioning, the possibility of existing is something which impacts us when we are talking about it. So you know when we are talking about work, everyone is working, and that's why the system is surviving. When you are portraying that work, it's good in a way because masses have the trust that my bureaucrat is working, or these are the new schemes or policies which are implemented or executed. So it's good to make the masses aware of all the good work that's happening, that generates trust, that generates confidence. But there is something more. You should not try to show that it is I who is doing everything and no one else is doing something competent to that. It's I who is capable of this. It is I who can probably like, create this kind of intervention or possibility. And you are having a media manager all the time. Every time you are scolding, doing this, doing that, someone is constantly grabbing your pictures and putting on your social media handle, and all sensational videos and this and that. So that's something which is not appreciated because the system is all about anonymity. The middle rung and the senior lot of civil servants, they have worked tremendously, and there have been a lot of upright officers without any sensationalism or limelight. So good work should come into limelight, not the person. That's why anonymity in terms of personality ought to be there. Anonymity in terms of work is not necessarily required, because when the work is publicized, then there is faith and trust generated towards the system. You come to know that, okay, some good work is continually happening when we speak of it. Okay. So you have to uphold the constitution and the law at all times, the rules and regulations at all the times when we are speaking of it. You also have to see that when the discretionary situations arise, when you have to take the decision on the basis of your mental acumen, then when you have values, the possibility of cognitive dissonance will be less. With values, the possibility of abuse of power will be less. But if there is absence of values, then in that situation cognitive dissonance can become high, the abuse of power can become high. So, when we are speaking of values, why values are required? Values are required to do away with this cognitive dissonance or dilemma: what to do, what not to do, what is right, what is wrong. When you are a value oriented person, you know what is value based and what ought to be done, what is the right thing to do. You get confused only when your values are messed up. Okay. Similarly, abuse of power will not happen if you are very clear about the value. Okay, Jainarayan, I hope you are able to understand dissonance. Okay, all those students who get new words, keep noting down the keywords, keep noting down the keywords. Okay, cognition is associated with understanding, thought process. Dissonance is confusion. So cognitive dissonance, when we are experiencing a dilemma about what to do, what not to do, sahi kya, galat kya kare, kya nahi kare, that's cognitive dissonance. And when your understanding is unable to decipher what is the right thing to do in a specific situation, and that confusion arises when you are not clear about your values. Because if you're clear and strong about your values, you know this is the value based decision that I ought to be doing, so let me do it. There is no space and scope for, like, any kind of debate or discussion or disappointment per se. Again, types of fundamental like foundational values, when we speak of it, there are ends oriented value and means oriented value. You understand ends value, means value, teleological, deontological, right? So this is like teleological and this is deontological. Under the component of teleological, all of you understand that a person, a civil servant, should always aim to achieve, okay, to achieve what the person aspires to gain, right? And what is the end product. They are able to visualize that, what is the DPSP, what is the fundamental right, and I have to at all times take decisions in the favor of fundamental rights, in the favor of DPSP, in the favor of constitutional values. Means based value, when you are constantly behaving and performing your duty, so you are focusing on what ways should be resorted to achieve the goal. So what should be the ways like maintaining transparency, accountability, responsiveness, efficiency at all times. So that is means oriented value, the ways that you acquire in the process of attainment of the goals. All right. Again, further, we can see that in India, when we are seeing the current set of ethical norms with respect to the code of like conduct rules, we all can see that the central services, or we can see the conduct rules, when we are connecting it with 1964, and when we are connecting the possibilities with all India services and like the state governments, we all can connect the possibility with the code of behavior, which is associated with the conduct rules, and we all can associate it with, like, let's say the draft in public services bill, that what ought to be done in a given situation. We have already seen this just few minutes back when I was discussing the previous slides, where we had discussed all these values which was proposed in the draft of public services bill, which was associated with national interest. In consonance of national interest, there should be patriotism, there should be also allegiance to the constitution. All these values ought to be upheld at all times, and in like maintaining absolute integrity, right? again, along with this, we all have also gone through the constitutional values. I've already shown you the constitutional values. So now we are fit to start with the foundational value, one of the foundational values for civil services. And the second ARC and Nolan committee, and like, all that is something which we have already discussed. So I'm just straight away moving to see this Nolan committee, all the things we have already done. So as we are moving into the foundational values for civil services, we all can start with objectivity, but after the break when we are speaking of it. So we can, and all those students who keep listening to new words like allegiance, okay, words like cognition, please note those words down and keep seeing it in the dictionary. All right, that's how you're supposed to behave. So it's 7:39. Let's take a 15 minutes break and let's be back with one of the civil services values, and now bit by bit I'll be discussing each civil services value in greater detail. अच्छा 40 हो गया, तो 40 कर देते हैं and we shall move ahead. Welcome back, all of you. So, as we are proceeding further ahead with this first foundational value of civil services, that is objectivity. So, let us understand what is objectivity. So, Snehlata, oh God, this is the third day in which we are reflecting this word deontological and teleological. It seems you have missed the sizable part of lectures. Why were you so absent, beta? Is it taking you somewhere in terms of civil services preparation? Because this term is something which you have connected with ethics also, values also. So when we are talking about this given dimension of deontological is associated with duty. When you focus more on duty, that is Mahatma Gandhi's approach. When you don't focus much on the goals, for you the means to achieve those goals are more important. And when we speak of teleological, it is associated with the goals, where you don't care what means you resort to, you only focus on achievement of those goals, like Subhash Chandra Bose. And don't expect me to repeat it, because I've repeated it at least 5 to 6 times in the previous sessions. Be more present, alert, and diligent in terms of this. And if you still need it, just ask the SME, he'll type it for you. Mm, yeah, chapter 3, 5, and 6, definitely. I mean, like, it must be written over there. There is similarity of words in different subjects. At that point, we can follow define rather than this abstract question. Shalu, can you be more precise that what kind of word has created that hit for you? So normative approach, okay, what is the difference between courage and bravery? Well, when we are speaking of this courage and bravery, well, it is associated with fortitude when we speak of it. When courage is in like I would say courage or fortitude or bravery, when it is too much, it is called foolhardiness. Like my grandfather fought with the lion, if someone is saying, and the person, what, fought with the lion, what happened? Nothing, the lion killed him and ate him. So this is foolhardiness, when there is too much of illogical courage or illogical fortitude. Okay, and what is it when we are talking about it associated with lack of courage or lack of fortitude? So that will be cowardice. Okay, so that's how you're supposed to connect with this. Nolan Committee's principles we have discussed just before the break, Abhishek. So again, you should have been present, and I discussed it in great detail, that what all like ethical principles the Nolan Committee had laid down. So that also proves that you were busy or absent during the time Nolan Committee was being discussed, isn't it? सो ऐसे बच्चों का क्या करें जो बीच-बीच में उड़ जाते हैं? Because when you miss the session by half an hour, when you miss the session by 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, you don't even have the time or clarity of revisiting it. But the truth is, for these 250 marks, when there is only 15 sessions, I have to be very precise in speaking things in such a manner that bit by bit we are covering one or the other sub-segment. In every 10 to 15 minutes, a little sub segment is covered. So missing out 15 minutes is missing a sub segment, as simple as that. So thank you, SME, for supporting me all in all these situations as well. So yes, Nolan Committee is taught in governance because it lays down the foundational values for governance. Okay, every civil servant who would have all these ethics and values, problem of corruption in bureaucracy would be solved. So very true. That's very true. So overlap of the topics in different subjects, yes, there will be a lot of overlapping of the topics, like corruption will be there in governance and corruption will be there in ethics as well. And corruption implies one and the same. It's just that from governance point of view, you will be seeing that what kind of problems, rigors, or challenges it is causing for governance. From ethical point of view, you will be seeing that how it is damaging the moral conscience of the society, how it is impacting the ethical standards of the society. So it's just that you will be evaluating the impact differently, but the concept implies the same. Okay, Shalu? So uh, answer me. I have to see the question to answer you, Misbah. Define civil servant and public servant. Just consider it one and the same for the time period, because civil is pertaining to society and public is again associated with society when we are talking about it. So When you are talking about a civil servant, you are like you are serving the civilians of a given country. But the moment you say public servant, it is public at large. Okay, so we can follow the definition. Yes, you can follow the definition and follow the standard definition, Shalu, not your own definition as you had asked. So I think I am not like missing out on anything. Misbah, you've just written, please answer my question, but I have not received the question. I could see the last 20 questions, I could not see. Acha, ab mila. Ethics is looking hard to me. It happens to start only when I feel hard and slowly it becomes easy. So this is not a question, this is an information. What do I have to answer regarding it? So yes, we'll come to integrity Rahul, we'll be discussing integrity soon. After like objectivity, there are other civil services values which will be discussed in greater detail. One of them is integrity. All right. So with respect to this, as we are substantiating this given component pertaining to objectivity, we will be reflecting upon what Nolan Commission has, or not commission, committee, what Nolan Committee has suggested about objectivity. Okay, so the Nolan Committee, it suggests about the definition of like objectivity. It says that the duties of a public office, they vest in the holder, and the authority to take decisions like make appointments, award contracts, recommending benefits. It is all there in the holder of the public office. The person who's holding the public office, that person will be taking decisions, appointments, contracts, benefits, all of it. So in that situation, the person has to always keep merit in mind. When you are keeping merit in mind, you maintain objectivity. When you don't keep merit in mind, you become biased, you become like you exercise favoritism, okay, or some kind of nepotism. So the decision should always be free from the vice of caprice. You must be aware of the term vice, right? The vices of science, the boon and bane of science. Remember that? So, vice means the negative aspect. So, when we are speaking of it, we can say that when you are motivated by objectivity, you save yourself from all forms of deviance and corruption that can occur in your life. So, the executive can take a leaf out of the book of judiciary by suo motu, supply of reason for every action. Means you can, whenever you are behaving in an objective manner, you are going by the rule book. Okay, you are following the rules as laid down by the judiciary, as laid down by any, we can say, rule making body. Okay, again we can again understand this given dimension, that the requirement of recording reasons is by itself a great safeguard that inhibits the decision maker from being subjective. Means when you are recording the reasons means when you're enlisting why you are rewarding the contract to a specific company, or why you are providing appointment to X over Y, why you are recommending the benefits to company A rather than company B. So when you mention the reasons, it is then that you are laying down the objective criteria for choosing a company or an individual over the other. And there you rule out subjectivity. There you do away with any scope or possibility associated with, we can consider, subjectivity when we are discussing about the given possibility. Again, when we are like understanding the meaning of objectivity over here, we can further reflect upon it. It is a committee, Akhilesh. So, ma'am, as a fresher, curious to know how many attempts should be given given priority if not cleared initially. Huh? How many attempts should be given priority? One attempt is sufficient to clear the exam. There are people who clear in the one attempt. So just focus that you are so well prepared that like you don't have to play attempt. You just have to be clear that you are aware of all the basic concepts. You know the right kind of facts and examples. You are able to connect one concept with the other, whether it is in one subject or the other subject. So fluidity of concept is there. With multiple revisions, you are thorough with the concepts. If this basic structure is done, trust me, you have already won 80% of the game. Rest of 20% comes with reflection and thinking. The more critical thinking and reflection, the higher the percentage of you getting selected. If it's like optimum level of critical thinking and reflection with the basics you have built, the 80% that you have built, you can achieve the 100%. And irrespective of the fact whether there are 300 seats or 700 seats or 1500 seats, you will be there. As simple as that, you will be there, because that's the basic aspiration of the examination. So when we are talking about objectivity, so objectivity was also discussed by Max Weber. Okay, when Max Weber was discussing about bureaucracy, so with respect to bureaucracy, he said that bureaucracy is like a legal rational authority. And when he said that bureaucracy is legal and, just a second, legal and rational authority, okay, legal and rational authority. So he implied by saying so that it is legal and it is rational. So it is based on what? It is based on logic, right? It is based on what? It is based on the law. So when it is based on the law and logic, then obviously you don't have the space and scope to create your own manipulations and interpretations. At all times, you will be following the rules and regulation to achieve the means. Okay, so we can consider that sorry, means I'm saying, to achieve the ends. So the means that you will prescribe to will be objective in nature, will be formal in nature to achieve those ends or goals. You will not like we can consider meander, or you cannot like incorporate anything as per your whims and fancy. Anything that you will choose will be logical, which will be rational, which will be legal in nature. Okay, so rational legal authority, when there is rational legal authority, what is there? So this leads to, we can say, following specific rules, regulations, following specific rules and regulations. The we can also see that the rules and regulations are disclosed to all. Okay, so it's disclosed to all. Okay, also there is legitimacy. There is legitimacy to what you do. So legitimacy, there are specific ends that you want to achieve, specific goals or specific ends. All right, so when it is bound by rules and regulations, it is like definitely pro system. So it is pro system, right? When we are speaking of this given possibility, it is not influenced by any personal belief or emotion per se. And there is legitimacy, so there is acceptance. When legitimacy is there, so there is acceptance, right? So like there, it will be free from any kind of bias or inclination, free from bias. So when it is disclosed, then it is free from bias, right? So that's also like how you can see the given scenario. So you can see that there are a lot of examples which can be like stated. For example, like you can think of we can say lady justice. You can think of various commissions and committees which are created. Let me first talk about various commissions or committees set up for arriving at a specific judgment. Okay, so why are specific committees and commissions created? So when there are controversial situations, in that, to bring in objectivity, you bring experts from different walks of life, you put them together, and the commissions or the committees has experts. Okay, and experts, they bring in, like, plurality of insight. And with plurality of insight, plurality of insights, what happens? They neutralize, they neutralize the biases and subjectivity of others. So they neutralize biases and subjectivity, subjectivity of others. The same reason is the reason, another example which you can think of is why we have constitutional bench. The same thing, we have a constitutional bench so that personal biases or subjectivity is neutralized. There is objectivity in decision making. So constitutional bench brings objectivity, brings objectivity. That's fine that Kumari Ganga, you are asking what is PSU, but my curiosity is, are you reading this subject right now? Because I have not discussed the word PSU in past, like at least half an hour, as per my memory goes. So, are you reading some other subject, suddenly popping here and asking a question that, "Lao economy पढ़ रहे हैं तो as I'm reading economy and I'm getting stuck up with the word PSU, let me ask it in ethics class. If not the teacher, at least the SME will respond." From where is the word PSU coming? I'm really curious, just curious, nothing more. That's public sector unit of all of us know that. But the question is, when such a question is raised, you feel like asking that from where is this question coming? What is the rhyme and reason of this question? When I'm discussing a completely different topic, right? So, with respect to this, ma'am, some logic doesn't talk about the facts. Then is it some logic doesn't talk about facts, like for example, like that's too abstract, Shanwas. So you have to substantiate yourself. Jean Paul Sartre. Sartre spelling is Satre, not Shatra, Shatra. That's incorrect spelling. So it's Jean, like when we speak of it, it's Jean as we pronounce it, though written as Jean, Paul, and then Sartre, Satre. Okay. So first correct the spelling, because you won't like Rahul being written as Rahule. So in the similar manner, we'll respect the thinker's name, and same applies to my name, right? So that's also there. So as a human being, objectivity is the worst thing in context of decision. Yeah, I mean, see, in the world of philosophy, that's the beauty. Every opinion has a counter opinion, every philosophy has a counter philosophy, and that's why through the power of dissent, in other words, through the power of shastrartha, in the domain of philosophy, or in the domain of logic, we could see that human beings evolved in ancient India. That's why you could see there were schools of dissent, or in in Sanskrit it is called, there were schools which were conducting shastrartha, by which people used to arrive at an opinion, because in the world of philosophy there will be a lot of plurality of interpretations by which we come up with the possibility. Now, the question that you are raising, that Jean Paul Sartre, he said that bringing objectivity is the worst thing in decision making. We'll discuss about this specific realm when, Rahul, I will be discussing, is complete objectivity possible in all situations? That's something which I will be taking, but in a short while. Let us slowly and steadily move to that given possibility, right? So Lok Sabha passing a bill is an example of objectivity, yes. Does objectivity necessarily have to be within rules and regulation? Yeah, following rules and regulation keeps you close to objectivity, because there is a logic, a rhyme or reason why you are deciding a specific thing, on what basis or logic you are deciding a specific thing. Okay, Sriram, I think I've heard it. Yes, exactly. We did not discuss any word like PSU, but a student raised a query related to PSU, so that's why I was alarmed. Okay, does objectivity necessarily have to? I've explained this. Mm, as per one of the Oxford reports, the individual must have 7 moral rules, such as helping family, group, returning favor, be upright, fair resource distribution. Then, can I use it in civil services value? Well, you can use it in moral when you're writing an answer on morality. Okay, then in that situation, Shanwas, you can use it, because for a civil servant, it's all about services, how you are going to conduct yourself in services. So writing that one should help one's family will fall under favoritism, nepotism. Okay, so you cannot write the regular or casual 7 moral principles, the general moral principles meant for society at large, connected with civil servant in specific. Okay, because few points can backfire. In individual personality, a human being can follow the 7 steps or rules, whether an officer or a commoner. But when we are talking about civil services at large, the values which they as officers are supposed to follow when they are holding the public position, the public office, it is that we are discussing. So don't mix up or mess up the approach. All right, Shanavas, but good. At least your brain is thinking that if I'm reading this thing from there, can we connect? So that's a very smart way of recalling content and trying to put it. Same is with like Rahul, when you connected it with Jean-Paul Sartre, that you are reading a thinker, you are getting some insight of a thinker, and you are bringing it over here as we are discussing it. So this is what I really appreciate. This is something which I encourage when I see my students, that they are thinking human beings and they are like, trying to join the dots. So I appreciate all these students who are trying to yeah, like, reflect so much as per the components, right? So with Niranjan, can we just focus on the content rather than my personal life? So, what if the interview, if they are asked that what quality you possess to become an IAS officer? Recall the chapter, the Civil Services Foundational Value. Recall the values. Ask yourself what value you have exercised in your personal or daily life while decision making, because they will be also asking for illustration, because the values are not just theories. They will put that to test, and there will be two ways. They will first ask from your real life experience, and second, very cleverly, in the midst of the interview, after a few minutes, some of the member will put that value to test, or few values to test, which you claimed that you hold. That's how it is done. Okay. Can we quote Kautilya? Yes, you can quote Kautilya. First year BA student, I continue. Shall I continue from now? Well, Akula, you can continue. You are continue from today's lecture itself. So there's no harm. We have just got into the new chapter, so you can catch up with it. Just follow the previous chapter, complete it. Okay, you have the access to it. Just complete it. Please explain, take a leaf out of the book. Take a leaf out of a book, it means like, taking out a content, taking out a specific reference of or reflection from a specific book, and then bringing it to the table or bringing it to the context. That's what it like implies. Yes, I also am a part of a few mock interview teams, Pulkit. Can we add stories? Anecdotes can be added in essay. In GS answers, you don't have the space and that intellectual space to write an anecdote, because anecdote will at least take 50 words. If it is a 150-word answer, one third of your answer is a story. So that is not a justified thing. That's why, Snehlata, it is not advised to write an anecdote till the time the examiner says that validate the answer from real life examples or examples from your own life. Till that time, you don't have that intellectual space to incorporate stories. Okay, so refrain from writing it unnecessarily. So overall preparation, no problem, Akula, you can start, because see, from some point of some benchmark, or some from some level, someone starts the session. Okay, so you can just start off with the component of, we can say, this subject or this preparation, and like it at least takes like 2 years of thorough preparation to clear the exam. Okay, so I think that you have started it at the right time, and you can be just fine. All those students who are planning to appear for the exam next year, okay, it is expected that you have started your preparation few months back at least. Be more diligent in your preparation, more systematic, like be more thorough with your revision, and follow a strict timetable. Do not in any situation try to compromise with your timetable. That is going to backfire in terms of your selection. All right, now, as we are no, don't fear about the reforms, Akula. Reforms don't happen overnight, and even if they happen at least an year in advance. They keep you posted at least 6 months to 1 year in advance. No reform is immediately happening. uh, and whatever will happen, it will bring in relaxation related to CSAT. The severity of CSAT was condemned and criticized quite heavily this year, and it was also observed by UPSC. So whatever relaxation will happen, it will be pertaining to the approach related to CSAT. So just relax. Okay. Now, how to prepare for ethics? Is there any tips or something? Pooja, I wish you were somewhere close. I would have patted your back, okay, dear, and also give a peck on your cheek for this question. The answer to this question is visit the first lecture. Okay, now, मतलब sometimes इतने तेजस्वी बच्चे आ जाते हैं, चमत्कार हो जाता है आंखों में मेरे. And this is for like South Indian students who are like, how come ma'am spoke Hindi statement for you. I'll just translate it because then you complain she spoke in Hindi one sentence. So I was saying that such illuminated souls enlighten and brighten this class that I become disillusioned, and I sometimes feel that I have been blinded by their energy and light. That's what I was saying. Okay, now with respect to this, this is not an interview class, Shalu. Let us stick to the content of objectivity. So as we are substantiating about objectivity, so objectivity in a public servant will be associated with, like, looking into the facts of the case, looking into the evidence of the case. So after considering the facts or evidence of a case, okay, a civil servant is considering the facts or evidence of a case, a civil servant is expected to provide information, to provide information, and that is how accurately the facts will be presented. So accurate facts and all options shall be presented, shall be presented. What does this lead to? So this leads to we can consider uh, deciding on the basis of merit. So this is decision on the basis of merit, merit and expertise, expertise. And this will lead to what? This will lead to objectivity, right? So all of you are able to understand what is objectivity. So it is sticking to the facts, it is sticking to the evidence, all that has been explained over here in greater detail in a paraphrased manner over here. So you will be reading it and you will be reflecting upon it. It's simple. Again, we can see when we are talking about objectivity, we can also remember the Lady Justice, right? So Lady Justice, why is she blindfolded? Yes, people. Why is Lady Justice blindfolded? Right? People say that कानून अंधा होता है. Like law is blind. Law is not blind. Law is blindfolded so that biases are not exercised. Okay, blindfolded so that biases are not exercised. Okay, complete objectivity is maintained. Complete objectivity is maintained by reflecting upon the facts of the case, right? Fine. All of you can now connect with this given dimension. Yes, you can expect a direct question on objectivity. Now comes the component of objectivity in complex situations. Now, objectivity in complex situations. The question is it possible for a civil servant to maintain objectivity at all times? To maintain objectivity at all times? So, whatever is the question, either the question is this way or the question is objectivity in complex situations, whatever is the question. Okay. So, because of the compassion, Rashmi, that's the reason. Everything is a logical corollary to what the possibility is denoting. The masculine energy and the feminine energy in us depicts two different sides of our existence. Anyway, so objectivity in complex situations, either the examiner can ask a question directly like this, that can we maintain objectivity in complex situations, or the question can be, is it possible for a civil servant to maintain objectivity at all times? So in that situation, you will be like writing, it is neither, and here Jean Paul Sartre, Rahul, comes in. Okay, so it is neither desirable nor possible. Okay, it is neither desirable nor possible to maintain objectivity at all times. Okay, why? Because there are a lot of unforeseen situations, a lot of unforeseen situations which a civil servant has to undergo. And in these unforeseen situations, you cannot have specific rules and regulations because you never expect it. So there is no specific rules and regulations. Hence, in these situations, a civil servant, because he is a senior authority, any person who is a senior authority has to indulge in taking subjective decisions, right? Subjective decisions. And it is the subjective decisions which actually set the future course of action, the future course of conduct. For example, we all can see, like over here, with respect to this example which I have incorporated over here, this is associated with COVID. So, COVID 19, when it happened and it inflicted upon the world, the bureaucrats, they did not know how to go about with it, right? So, with respect to COVID 19, we saw the different bureaucrats came up with different solutions. So, some bureaucrat was barricading, some bureaucrat was discouraging people from holding public meetings. Some bureaucrat was making, like, in bulk the production of sanitizer. Some bureaucrat was providing food packets to the passing migrant labor and creating shelter homes for them, toilets for them, clean access to drinking water for them. In the similar manner, you could see that some bureaucrats were, for example, a bureaucrat from Maharashtra, because he was also a doctor and he got selected into civil services. So he was aware that the first thing that would occur if this pandemic explodes, and that will be oxygen. So what he did was that he got an oxygen cylinder plant being done. So the oxygen plant that he got constructed in Maharashtra, it made his district as the only district in Maharashtra which was self-sufficient in terms of availability of oxygen cylinders. And there was no need to import it from Bokaro or Bhilai. Okay, so when we talk about it, different civil servants responded differently in the COVID-19 crisis. Similarly, we can take the another example. So, like for example, we can think of this COVID-19, and there is subjectivity in the, like, decision making of these civil servants. You can also take another example. This is another example, that is the Taj attack, right? So when we are thinking of the Taj attack in Mumbai, the terrorist attack in Mumbai, 2611, when we speak of it, so a bureaucrat had not thought, or like we can say the army personnel or the paramilitary, they had not thought that there will be a real life terrorist attack in normal civilian areas, not even a border area, in normal civilian areas in a regular metropolitan township. So when the Taj attack happened, the world was witnessing a real life terrorist attack, and they were seeing that how the entire hotel was seized, and it was, like, isolated, and there were a lot of people who were held hostage by the terrorists, and it was a very terse situation, right? So in that situation, you could, if you know about, have you, if you've watched the movie Major, if you have not watched the movie Major, if you are reflecting upon the person who actually, okay, do you remember who was the hero of 2611? A very, I would say, amazing and intelligent officer who, with his, I would say, intellectual acumen, could save a lot of hostages. I would say 90% of the hostages who were held were saved by this man single handedly because of his presence of mind. uh, yes, very good. Sandeep Unnikrishnan, all those who are able to recall. So these real life heroes should be like remembered by all of you. So because of his presence of mind, he could see that it is the media which is manipulating the information, leaking out all the information, and preparing the terrorists better, because the media is being followed by the international organization of terrorists, and they are now tipping the terrorist that what is the next move of the government. So when he realized that it's the media which is communicating all the secret information, each and every detail associated with the action that we are taking is being communicated by the media, or sometimes what we are plotting, planning, that is also communicated by the media, which is also hindering or thwarting our plan. So how about like having a focused approach or a possibility in which we can like put a check over the given situation. So what he did was associated with this given scenario, that is, he went to the media, said, why are you people like spreading false rumors, this and that, and he miscommunicated. He gave a false tip to the media publicized it, that false tip went to the terrorist organization, they misinformed the media, they misinformed the terrorists, they vacated the area, only one or two guys were left with so many hostages, and it is then that the the commandos attacked those limited number of terrorists, eliminated them, and saved the hostages. So there are a lot of pressing situations, unprecedented situations, unforeseen situations in which situations can be stuck in which a civil servant has to take the decision. So it is a clerical expectation to be objective at all times. Who is mostly objective? The one who has to follow rules and regulation. And who has to follow rules and regulation? The lower staff. So the lower staff has to always be objective. But when it comes to senior positions, senior levels, maintaining objectivity at all times is not possible. Okay. So here, when you are reflecting upon such questions, you can probably substantiate it, which probably I can again give you as an insight. And that is, please remember this core sentence, or rather I should take another sheet when we are talking about this. So just remember this very dimension, that in welfare functions, in welfare functions and welfare functions and leadership functions, complete objectivity is not possible. Complete objectivity is not possible. Okay. Complete objectivity is not possible. Okay. So you can also think of other situations as well, right? So you will find that that's why any learned person tends to reject objectivity as a virtuous act. They consider that if you are a smart, sensitive, intelligent person, you can't always be objective. There will be human subjectivity that will be ruling. For example, let us consider the Indian Penal Code, right? So the IPC also considers the subjectivity, like a person killing another person by mistake, a person killing another person in self defense, the person was getting raped or abused or whatever, and the person killing another person by plotting, purposefully plotting. So in all the three situations, there will be three types of punishment that can be levied by the court. So you need to understand that complete objectivity, when we are talking about it, complete objectivity is many a times neither exercised nor it is possible when we are speaking of it. Okay. So what is required? So you need to understand that hence we need to balance subjectivity and objectivity. Subjectivity and objectivity. And how do we balance it? How to balance it? Yeah. How to balance it when we speak of it? So just remember the definition of justice, which I have given you earlier. That is, in equal circumstances, there should be equal response. Okay. and in unequal circumstances, so in equal circumstances equal response, so there will be objectivity. Objectivity is exercised, okay, and in unequal circumstances fairness, okay, fairness should be exercised over objectivity, over objectivity, okay. That is something which all of you have to remember when we are speaking of this given situation. So, and there is always scope of criticism, so you don't have to like fear criticism, you just have to maintain clarity of purpose. When there is like unequal circumstance, just exercise justice, fairness, and there is like equal circumstance, follow the rules, regulations, the code of conduct, and just go ahead with objectivity, as simple as that. All right, so I hope all of you are able to understand that. So hence we can just remember that objectivity is an instrumental value. Objectivity is an instrumental value rather than, okay, rather than an end in itself. And end in itself, it is an instrumental value rather than an end in itself. So both, like objectivity and fairness needs to be followed at all times to like achieve the possibility of justice and equality, justice and fairness. All right, so that's, I hope all of you are able to understand that. Ma'am, it can be linked to advanced stage of attitude, that is human behavior in situational circumstances. Yeah, I mean, like when your values are very distinct and clear, it does influence your attitude to be more formal, to be more, we can say, organized per se. Okay, so that's there. Now, with respect to this, when we are speaking of it, judiciary is based on objectivity, but still there can be subjectivity. So very true, Mrityunjay. So before 2020 August, that Supreme Court laid down that whether parental property or ancestral property, girl has equal rights on all. Prior to that, when a right to property was declared, between right to property being declared to in 2020 August, like between these almost 15 years, August 2020, when Supreme Court like made clarity, brought clarity that a girl child has access to ancestral property as well as parental property. So between this time period, when we reflect upon the quotients, when we reflect upon the details, all of us can recall, all of us can understand um, the dynamics pertaining to it, that we all can connect this given insight that when we are building upon like some core concept or some core idea or some core insight pertaining to what ought to be there or what all segments are there, so in that situation we all can probably associate the insight with respect to what are the ideals that we are living with, what are the possibilities that we are living with, and what do we truly aspire to achieve. So we can see that the Supreme Court comes up with some formidable solutions. So in between we see that the Supreme Court came up with different interpretation. Like for example, the Supreme Court stated that with respect to this area, that a lot of people who were um, you know, getting a decision from their high courts, state high courts, that the girl can have access to father's property but not ancestral property. Some were saying no, she has access to both. So this ambiguity was because of like lack of clarity. Similarly, you can see constitutional amendments. Even constitution is highly subjective, isn't it? It is subjective and open to interpretation. That's why we can go for amendment of the constitution itself, right? So I hope all of you are able to understand that. Maintaining objectivity at all times may be too idealistic, no Pulkit. Maintaining objectivity at all times can also lead to inequality and biased exercise of law, because in different situations, in complex situations, you cannot maintain objectivity. I mean, if I am giving ration, suppose I'm distributing ration, and a person is well fed and another person has not eaten for 3 days, but if I'm maintaining complete objectivity, one packet per person, so in this situation there can be a problem. I will have to prioritize and suppose I have limited packets, there are 500 people and I have 100 packets. So I will not have to maintain only objectivity. जो पहला 100 आएगा उसको दे देंगे, नहीं. I will have to also exercise subjectivity. Who is more needy? So that fairness is exercised in this unequal circumstance. Getting it? So it's not too idealistic, it is too problematic. In complex situation, if we still continue to be objective. All right? So that's what. So judgments of Supreme Court included in law like statutes of parliament. Well, judgments of Supreme Court will be associated with different possibilities. No, it can be associated with law of torts, IPC, CRPC. There's not only one version of law when we are speaking of it. Can you give example of hypothetical examples for equal, unequal circumstance? Sriram, if you were aware and alert, I gave you the example of COVID. I gave you the example of Taj, right? So they were not hypothetical. They were like real life examples where human subjectivity had to be exercised, right? And there was this was a complex situation, so you could not extend equal treatment. That's why bureaucrats were having different types of decisions. Different bureaucrats came up with different types of decisions in the concerned segment, right? Article 14, 21, 19 almost articles talk about subjectivity. Yes, that's also there. Can I write President pardoning the capital punishment of the convict is not based on objectivity? Yes, Ilma, you can think of that also. Common sense is needed while dealing with complex situation. No, Chandrahas, I did not use the word common sense. I used the word fairness and justice. So do not put words in my mouth or your own mouth, because that will become commonsensical, where your answer becomes common sense when you write common sense words. Sometimes you need precise exact words which give clarity to the concept. So common sense is like randomly you are arriving at it. No, there is a method to arrive at it. If not objectivity being exercised in situations, then fairness and justice should be exercised in situations, not common sense. जो ठीक लग रहा है कर लेते हैं. क्या है जो ठीक लग रहा है? जो ठीक लग रहा है is not something which is based on rational thought process. We are saying that we will maintain objectivity, and if we cannot maintain objectivity, we'll exercise fairness and justice, because then fairness and justice will be the rational way to respond to the situation, the logical way to respond to the situation. Okay, so be very careful when you are thinking of words, because common sense is not always a very healthy word. So, though it is said that common sense is less common, that's also true. That's also true. But when we are talking of a technical subject with technical jargons, we cannot uh, have common sense words or common sense thought. So, I can't, Satyam, help why the and I cannot. I'm not the spokesperson of the government, so I cannot justify the statement that why the government said that no person died during COVID due to lack of oxygen. I cannot be the spokesperson of the government giving an explanation why it said so. Okay, so. I will not get into it, and you have to also keep your concerns more academic in nature. No one is going to ask you politically loaded or triggered statements in the exam, either in mains or in interview. So ओके, सो आई थिंक थोड़ा सा एसएमई आप इसमें सपोर्ट करिए, अब फिर से आपकी जरूरत है. सो व्हेन वी आर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट दिस गिवन स्टेटमेंट, हाउ कैन वी एंश्योर ऑब्जेक्टिविटी? सो आई हैव गिवन यू, it can be ensured, objectivity can be ensured through transparency, sharing information to the larger crowd through information management system. Okay, and that is how you are able to bring in objectivity before the masses, that they are able to understand with due clarity what ought to be followed at all times, right? Then we come up with the next term, that is empathy and compassion. So what is empathy and compassion when we are discussing about it? So empathy and compassion, as you can understand the term empathy. Empathy is putting yourself in another person's shoes. Now, how about I give you a basic understanding related to these terms through a interesting insight? Like, when we are talking about terms like apathy, after apathy we have pity, sympathy, empathy, and compassion. How do these terms come into existence, and what is their validity in terms of human behavior when we are speaking of this given dimension? So, we all can reflect upon the dimension related to these terms and their validity pertaining to civil services values. Apathy, like, let me give you an example related to a public office. Suppose there is a couple with a little child, they arrive to a city. Okay, so suppose they come from the village, they take the bus overnight, they travel, they come to the city, and the man, he asks random people near the bus stand that I need a job, and they are like, there's no job, there's no job. So one of them says, here is a government office, why don't you go and seek a job over there? So because government job is more permanent, and if you get a job your life will be cool. So he's like, okay. And as he takes his son and wife to the office, and they are waiting like near the door, this man, he goes and he reaches out to one of the official windows and he asks, sir, I need a job. So suppose that officer, he becomes too rude, too caustic, and he passes cruel remarks that, oh yeah, all jobs are just lying in the basket over here, people will come and I'll distribute the jobs, that just take, here is the job, I'm going to distribute it today, huh? So you people, like uneducated fools coming from village, and just thinking that jobs are lying here like decorated in a plate for you to be like taken. Is it so easy to get a government job? Who gave you the idea to even think of coming to this office? You're a sheer wastage, you're sheerly wasting my time, and you're a sheer wastage and a blot on humanity, you are this, you are that, something like that. This is what the person is exercising, apathy. Okay, so you see that a lot of times when we use prefixes and suffixes, we change the meaning. Pathos is the root word. Pathos is associated with, like, the sensitivity or the pain. Okay, so it is associated with the pain or the like the sensitivity that you experience in a given situation as you are exposed to it, right? So when we are reflecting upon this, the person, when he like exercised apathetic behavior or apathy towards this person coming from the village, okay, then the person exercised cruelty, insensitivity, indifference. Remember these keywords: cruelty, insensitivity, indifference. Okay. And in such a situation, a person can speak caustic language. Now, in past 3 days, I have used the word caustic so many number of times. Caustic. I don't know how many of you looked into the dictionary the meaning of the word caustic. And I don't know how many of you gained the sense of comfort and confidence to use the word caustic in your day to day life. Okay, that's how you actually learn language, because there are two sources: one is the books and notes, and second is the teacher. These are the two sources that expose you to better language and better vocabulary and better capability to think. Now, so that's the apathetic attitude or the apathy exercised by the official. Now let us say the person got little disappointed, waited some time outside the door, again went to another window, again requested that, sir, I have, like, my child is there, my wife is there, and we have not eaten anything since morning. Last night we left from the village in search of employment in the city, can you please help? And the person is like, oh my god, you are such an innocent simpleton. Jobs are not lying randomly in the cities. It's so tough to get job, there are so many people who are unemployed. Okay, do something. You just take this 20-30 rupees, just go and have some samosa outside. So the act that is performed by this official from the second window is that of pity. that you just want to cover up the situation immediately somehow, and you don't even bother to cover up in a formidable manner. You are just doing something and you don't care what would be the impact of what you are doing, whether it will be enough or meaningful or not. You're just doing it. Simple. So that's pity. So dayalu, okay? So in this you do have some emotion, but the emotion is treating the other person as a second grade citizen, looking down upon the person, and you're just doing something, some kind of intervention when we are speaking of this given dimension. Similarly, when we are talking about sympathy, so sim means when you are like in the same symmetry, when you are in the same vibe, and pathy is associated with emotion. So when your emotion is in the same vibe, means when the other person said, oh my god, I have not eaten anything, I have come from the village overnight, I traveled, I did this, that, and you hear that person and you are like, oh poor guy, he has really suffered or struggled, and then you are like, your condition is really tough, but my friend, there is no job over here, so what should be done for you? So let us do something. Let me give you 500 rupees. Just go and eat something that will cost you 100, and then you'll get the bus ticket. Just purchase the bus ticket and go. Okay, there is no job lying over here, and you will rather be stuck in chaos. You have a child, you have a wife, you might not be able to support them, and the condition will grow worse. And maybe someone can fall ill. Then what will you do? So it's not advisable to stay in the city for long. You just eat something, take the bus and go. So out of sympathy, the person made an intervention. The intervention was formidable, but the intervention was like, despite being formidable, the formidable means enough. It was like sufficient, but the person does not care what will happen next. Means when you exercise sympathy, you do things as an immediate response to solve the problem, but you do not care what happened in the long run related to that problem. You don't care to intervene in the long run. You don't care to follow up the situation in the long run. So that's something associated with the term called sympathy. Okay. Again, when we are discussing about this term called sympathy, we can further substantiate or elaborate upon it. So you can see that when the person gave 500 rupees or any such intervention that we do in our real lives, there is a fair chance that after a month or 2 months, we won't even remember that we gave some money to some person who was in need. Because you're like, oh, every once in a while, when I find someone needy, I'll just support. So that's sympathy. When you don't really care and you don't even remember the incident, you don't even bother to follow up the incident. It just happened, you did what you could, and that's it. You forget about the incident, it doesn't matter to you anymore. Then comes empathy. In empathy, you can see the term M. M, whereby you are putting yourself in the person's shoes. You are considering yourself in the person's shoes. So, like, let's say the person reaches the fourth window, and in the fourth window, there is an officer who's sitting. And the moment he hears the narrative of the person and he sees his child as he peeps from his, like, official window, then he is reminded of his childhood, that yeah, even my father got me and my mother from the village and I was almost this age. There is no difference between this child and I was also equally confused what my father is doing. My father only knew how to cultivate land, he was not even educated enough, and this is how he had reached a public office. And the officer helped him. He said, okay, we don't have a job in the office over here, but probably I can give you a job privately. You can tend to my garden, and you can become my gardener. And because the job of a gardener for our little official gardens which is there in our officers quarter is not so much, so you can probably take up the job in our vicinity, in our area. And as far as your stay is considered, there is a like, servants quarter in my house, so you can just stay in that quarter with your wife and child. And as like your wife and child are staying in that servants quarter, your wife can also take up some odd jobs. She can like clean utensils or do something related to household chores at my place, and she can also take up responsibility in other houses. So that ways you both will be able to support the education of your child. I'll see to it that your child is admitted to school. So suddenly life takes a flashback for this fourth officer. And he sees the child and he is reminded that it was the kindness of that officer because of which his father could stay in urban area. He got inducted into a government school. He was a good student, so he caught up with the game, and the officer encouraged the child to take up competitive exams, and that is how he could become an officer. So with empathy, what he will do is like, don't worry, I will try to fix something. And then he makes 2 3 calls to his friends and dear ones, and he asks if they need a staff, and he tries to get this man well placed. Okay, so that's empathy. But now the interesting fact is, when we are seeing the words over here, okay, when we are seeing the words over here related to pathy, sympathy, empathy, in these words there is this word pathy. Pathy, as you know, is associated with pathos or pain. Now my question is, and pay attention all of you as I raise this question, my question is, do we necessarily have to get affected by pain, guilt and remorse to make a difference in people's life? Is it necessary that we are we have an aching heart, we have a sad heart, we have a very sad disposition to make a difference in people's lives? Or can we make a difference even out of sheer care for people, for the, we can say, aspiration to create justice in people's lives? Can we still continue to maintain that, and can we exercise that possibility? That's my question, right? So even without feeling sad or even without crying, we can make a difference, right? It's not necessary every time there is someone coming to your district office, and every time a person is crying that, sir, please help me, or oh ma'am, please help me, and you are like, oh my god, seeing this person, I'm reminded of my grandpa, my grandma, my uncle, my aunt, my this, my that. Oh, so this person is in so much of tremendous pain, let me help. And every time you are also shedding tears, or you are also becoming sad, oh my god, there is so much of poverty, oh my god, there is so much of destitution, so much of helplessness. Because every time if you continue to be sad, you will become a sad person. So it is possible to make intervention without necessarily becoming sad, ached, pained by the situation. And that is possible through compassion. When you're competently passionate to serve the needy, to serve the people and stand for them, when we are speaking of this given dimension, compassion. Okay, so apathy, pity, sympathy, empathy, and compassion. So suppose a person goes, okay, and a person goes seeking help, and when a person goes seeking help from the government official to the fifth window, the government official is like smiling, uh, like with a pleasant smile, not heh heh heh, like sneering and looking down upon the person. No, just a pleasant smile that you are welcome to the office, your concerns are well heard. And then the person reflects upon the situation and says, okay, there is the labor bureau, there are certain other departments also which are open to hiring, let me coordinate with them and see to it if there is any scope or space for you. Okay, so this is a formal way to respond to the situation. This is again a concerned way to respond to the situation without necessarily getting affected by the case. Okay, so in your exam, you will find these two words coming together: empathy and compassion, empathy and love, empathy and tolerance. These words, they come together because empathy in isolation is not what we talk about. Though empathy, like when it is used as a civil services value, it is actually connected with your concern for the society, concern for the vulnerable section, which is again a virtue, which is again a positive thing. But I believe that a higher virtue, which is above empathy, is compassion. Okay, so that's why you have like you have a better sense of understanding associated with this given dimension. Give my example, ma'am. Azhar, I need to know the example. I've not read your example because I was busy explaining. Otherwise, I would have definitely given your example if it was suiting the situation. I've seen every government officer as cruel and caustic. Then maybe your exposure is limited, Payal, right? I've seen a lot of officers who are real good people, whether they are present and serving, or who, or they have taken voluntary retirement. But I've really come across or seen good officials. All right. So confusion between pity and sympathy. In pity you don't try to make any meaningful intervention. In pity you just give anything. ये लो 10 रुपया भागो यहाँ से, ये लो 20 रुपया भागो यहाँ से, like that. In sympathy you try to make a meaningful intervention but you don't care for future. Okay, you just make the intervention in the moment. Okay, that's what. So here when we are talking about it, will immoral person exercise apathy? Yes. A person who lacks morality will be the person who will exercise apathy or cruelty. All right. So ethics, MTS discussions not explained by you? No, not right now. I'm already overloaded. There is enough in my plate to handle, and I want to bring justice to that itself. Okay. Compassion has been explained, Garima. You should have been alert, right? So there is like this component of sympathy, empathy, and compassion, which all of you can like really. Is apathy similar to cruelty? Yes, that's what I said. Insensitivity, cruelty. Okay. So being caustic, I used a lot of words for it towards the beginning. So anyway, empathy means an ability to understand the pain of others. Yes, yes. It is to capability to understand the pain of others. And when you understand the pain of others, you also get affected by it. Compassion says that without getting affected by the pain of others, you can still understand that they are in pain and you can exercise a justified behavior towards them. It's not necessary that you are ached and pained all the time. It is necessary that you are touched and you are able to see the intensity of the problem. And after seeing the intensity of the problem, you are capable to make the right kind of intervention. That's what. Okay. So with respect to this, it's not necessary every word I explain will be in the picture. You just have to understand the concept in totality. Okay. So when we are talking about these given components, so like the like for example I said apathy, so apathy will be lack of emotion, cruelty, indifference. Okay, in the similar manner when I said sympathy, so sympathy is an instinctive reaction of kindness. Okay, should I cruelty, insensitivity. Okay, I also used a term being caustic. Again, sympathy will be associated with an instinctive reaction of kindness. Instinctive reaction of kindness. So it's just an instinctive reaction of kindness which is momentary. Momentary, spontaneous. Okay, it is momentary or spontaneous in nature. So the real understanding of the problem may not be there in sympathy. In empathy, you are putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Okay, so you can understand the understanding of the problem, the sorrow. Okay, so understanding of the problems and sorrow of the person. So you can see the emoticons. In empathy, there is a tear over here. You can see this. There is a tear in this person's eyes, right? Whereas in compassion, the eyes are kind but not crying. I will help you and end all your sufferings. There is commitment to work without necessarily like getting affected. So this is the action stage. So there is a desire, there is a desire to resolve the problems, right? So with respect to, we can consider government officials. The government officials, you can consider that the government officials sometimes are highly indifferent. Okay, they are sometimes highly indifferent. Okay, and they are highly indifferent, so that leads to a challenge in terms of resolving the problem. Okay, so that is something that this is the answer to why we can consider, do we need these values in civil services? Why do we need these values in civil services? So the government officials are highly indifferent. You can think of the helicopter approach. That's why I've just like marked the helicopter. So helicopter approach, or we can say the civil servants suffer from the distancing trap. Distancing trap. You can think of armchair bureaucracy. In armchair bureaucracy, you are just focusing on fulfilling the files, fulfilling the duty. You are not compassionate enough to understand the pathos of the people. So there is a distancing trap. Distancing trap. Due to the distancing trap, we can see that there is indifference, there is like treating people like furniture, ignoring them, seeing through them. All those problems are there. So this distance can be resolved. This distancing trap, this indifference, okay, can be resolved with empathy and compassion. So this can be resolved with empathy and compassion. That's something which all of you need to understand. Rudyard Kipling had once said, to walk among the kings and yet not lose the common touch. Okay, to walk among the kings and yet not lose the common touch. That is what the civil servants need. That even if they are moving with the ministers, the like high profile businessmen, okay, well off people, but they should never lose the touch with the people. Okay, there is this movie called Toilet Ek Prem Katha. In this, you see a similar approach was used by the actor, the protagonist. What did he do? So he saw that the file to like make construct public toilets in vulnerable areas is not getting passed, and people are suffering massively because of it. So the protagonist, who himself was a bureaucrat, what he did was he told the peon that just lock the toilet and keep the keys. And if any time any government official is saying, "Oh, why is the toilet locked? Please open it." When the peon, when they come to ask, just say that sir has the key, and he shall provide the key only when you sign the file. So please go through the file quickly. You don't need to delay it because you've been delayed it for months together. So run through the file and sign it, and please move it forward. So it was seen that all the officials who were troubled that day while going to the toilet, they immediately ran through the file, approved of it, and then let the file kept moving. And within a week, the so-called funds were sanctioned, and the work related to toilet construction started. So that is something which you need to understand. So his office could submit the file within a day because everyone became diligent, and it was because he created empathy, that if you are suffering, are you understanding your suffering, you will understand the suffering of the poor, and you'll get the file signed or passed. So that's what. So Son of Satyamurti is a good example. Okay, must have been, I've not watched it, so that's also there. uh, Difference between pity and sympathy. I have Sheikh explained it I think twice, because some student had asked it again. This is the third time I'm explaining, but with the underlining the fact that third time. Okay, so pity is associated with when you are exercising kindness, but there is looking down upon the person and you don't care what is the nature of intervention. So suppose someone is like, please give me something to eat, I'm really hungry, you give 5 rupee and you walk off. You don't care that in 5 rupee how much the person will be able to buy or what the person will be able to feed himself or herself with. But in sympathy, what you will do is you will purchase bananas, you can purchase like maybe some food items and you'll give the person. You take this food item and eat. But this is sympathy. You do not care that tomorrow also this person will come and beg in the similar manner. So what I have done is just a temporary solution. You do it and you forget about it, what you did, what you contributed, what you donated. So that is sympathy. All right. Pity, sympathy. Shaikh, I hope that's clear. So, what is helicopter approach? Helicopter approach is nothing. It is surveying from distance. Don't you see ministers do that? When there is a flood, they won't go down and meet the people in the fear of being abused or in the fear of not passing the right kind of policies, letting the dam burst, letting the, like, poor disaster management. So the ministers, they don't go down and meet the people. Majority of the times they will do a helicopter survey. So from the term helicopter survey, like from a distance you are just taking an overview that what has happened. From there the term helicopter approach comes. Helicopter approach means you are not moving on the ground, scanning through the ground, connecting from the ground. You're just taking an overview from the top. Got it? Armchair bureaucracy means when you are only fulfilling the objectives like on paper, when you are following the rules on paper, you do not care in terms of its execution. Okay, you're just like, sometimes you may even exercise red tapeism, delaying of work. Okay, so armchair bureaucracy, like there was the CP Bhamri, a Delhi University professor of political science. He said that the bureaucrats in India, they suffer from the, like they are the new Brahminical system of India. What was this new Brahminical system of India? Why did he say so? Because the way the Brahmins were, touch me not, we are like higher in status, we are the best people, you should stay away from us, and like trying to distance themselves, especially from the vulnerable sections, especially the Dalits. In the similar manner, the bureaucrats seem to distance themselves from the vulnerable sections, and they act as if they are larger than life, they are better than the rest, and that is also something which impacts the level of empathetic and compassionate connect with the concerns of the people. Okay, to which I quoted Rudyard Kipling, who said that to walk among the kings and yet not lose the touch, the common touch, is the approach which is required for the bureaucrats. All right. Rajnath Singh did in Bengal when Amphan cyclone hit the coast. Fairly possible. Apathy, what Britishers did to Indian peasants. Yes, definitely. Apathy based on okay, so these are just examples. Fine. So as all of you are getting a brief understanding of it, we can connect it even with this component of like empathy and compassion from one more perspective, the Gandhian perspective. So Gandhi, he said, like when he like came from South Africa, he moved across India through train. Why did Gandhi, when he came to India, he did an all India tour through the train? What was the reason? To develop a sense of compassion towards the concerns of the people, so that before finding the true solutions to the problems of the people, how about understanding the problem in totality? So for which we can see that Mahatma Gandhi surveyed the entire area very thoroughly. And that is when that he saw that there was a poor woman who was taking a bath in Ganges, and she was cleaning the dhoti and she was still wearing it. So she was struggling to clean it while wearing it. So to which his personal secretary, who was moving with him, Hari Lalji, he said that he said this to Mahatma Gandhi, that look at the intensity of poverty, that in this country people don't even have an extra dhoti to wrap. This woman will keep wrapping this dhoti in this cold weather, and as she is wearing it, it will keep drying. She doesn't have an alternate dhoti. That's why she is wearing it, cleaning it, and just cleaning it somehow. She'll just walk out of the water. So, this given insight, this given understanding, touched upon Gandhi so very tremendously that he gave up on, like, wearing like suit and a trouser and all that, waistcoat, etc., because it required a lot of fabric. Another thing, he gave up on it, along with, like, it required more fabric. Second thing which he felt was, I need to be self sufficient, so I'll weave my own, like, I'll create my own thread, I will weave my own thread, and I will create my own dhoti, and whatever I can create, I will consume only that much. So I'll create only what is sufficient for me, and I'll consume that much. So that sufficiency is the value which is motivated amongst people. So with his compassionate understanding, when he connected with the masses, like, wearing that tiny dhoti, and like, moving between the masses, even when he represented India, like in the round table conference at that time also, he went like to England during chilly winters, wearing just, like, a dhoti which was almost his knee length, and he was wrapping a blanket around his body, upper half of the body. So many people were startled and surprised, because majority of the people were suited, booted, they were heavily like wearing different types of heavy coats. In that, Gandhi was just wrapping a blanket, because he was like, this is what my countrymen can generally afford. So what my people can generally afford, that is what I will choose to wear. So that is something which is coming from the component of compassion when we are talking about it. You can also think of, so rather than his, like, we can say, train journey across India to develop a compassionate understanding of the problem, to develop a compassionate understanding of the problem. So train journey across India to develop a compassionate understanding of the problem. That is what all of you can probably connect with. Okay. Along with this, you can also connect it with, we can consider some other segments. So you can associate it with his famous bhajan, Vaishnava Janate, Tene Kahiye Je, Peed Parai Jane Re. This bhajan was also based on exercising compassion, exercising empathy and compassion. So this is one example with two subsets. Similarly, the another example which I can give you is from Yudhishthira Yaksha conversation. So Yudhishthira was traveling across the forest, and he was very thirsty one day when he was on exile. So he sent one of his brothers to fetch water. And as his brother found a very beautiful stream having very crystal clear water, he bent down to drink, like Nakul and Sahdev, they bent down to drink water, to which a yaksh appeared. Like a yaksh was more like a spiritual energy, and like a spirit, and said that I will allow you to drink water only if you respond to my answer. Nakul Sahdev ignored that voice. They drank the water, they fainted. Same, it was followed by Bhima, later Arjuna. So when Yudhishthira arrived at the spot, he saw four of his brothers fainted over there. And again, the same statement was repeated by Yaksha, that like, your brothers are in deep coma, and if you also drink the water, you will also join them, and soon you all will die. So if you want to save the situation, it's better that you indulge in the conversation. So Yaksh Yudhishthir conversation, the detail of it is something which is like, Afreen, you belong to this country, right? So if I know what is Rosa, you should be knowing what is a bhajan, isn't it? We are in a syncretic culture. Syncretic culture means a culture which is diverse and sharing. Don't be so isolated that you don't understand basic words which are existing in our cultural scenario, which are a part of our wholesome existence. Because we are like, no one can say that, oh, sambusa is coming from Saudi Arabia, so let me not eat it. Sambusa becomes samosa in India. That's syncretism. We use the term bazaar for market, and we don't say, oh, why to use bazaar because it's Urdu. In the similar manner, bhajan are the basic devout songs, the devotional songs sung by Hindus and specifically Vaishnavas for their Lord or for their God, or, whoever they consider him to be. In this case, Vishnu. Okay, so that's what a bhajan is. I mean, like, I'm surprised that you people, like all you students, sometimes the simple words that you raise as a concern, I really become perplexed that how myopic is the exposure, that you people have not heard the basic terms. Like, there have been Tukaram, there has been Kabir Das, there has been Ray Das, there has been Dadu Dayal. Medieval history which is associated with bhakti movement, the entire bhakti movement comprises of different types of bhajans sung by different types of saints in India, including Raskhan. Raskhan, he was a Muslim, and he was an exponent in writing poetry and bhajans pertaining to Krishna Bhakti. Okay. So medieval history ki dhajji ud jati with such questions. I'm really like surprised. So that's really sweet, Azhar. Thank you for explaining that it is similar to Hamud or Nath. That's so very true. See, it's not about Hamud or Nath. What I am concerned is these are some regular terms, very, very regular terms. It should be understood by everyone. I mean, if someone says, like, I would have been equally offended if someone would have written, ma'am, what is Rosa? I would have been like, are you living in this country? And are you exposed to the syncretic culture? It doesn't matter who the child is and from what background. If you are living in an Indian society, like a hardcore syncretic society, some basic terms ought to be known even before you start the preparation. And if you have started with preparation, then bhakti movement exposes you to a lot of terms, right? So it is less to do with, it is less to do with, I would say, the meaning. It is more to do with exposure. I get alarmed that it's just symbolic, that it's one word that's not known. There might be a world of similar words, a world of similar concepts, a world of similar insights that might not be known, and which is basic, which is elementary to understanding when you are preparing for civil services, and when you have to serve the people. And when you have to serve the people, you have to know the language of the people, you have to know the cultural aspirations of the people, the behavior of the people. People, on an average, by and large, belonging to all communities. All right. Oh ho ho. All right. Now, with respect to this, when we are discussing this given dimension, so in Yudhishthira Yaksh conversation, this same question came up. The question was, what is the greatest dharma? What is the greatest dharma? What is dharma? The moral code of conduct. Moral code of conduct. Anyone interested to read this Yudhishthir Yaksh conversation? In school days, in our textbooks, there used to be only 5 questions. That the Yaksh asked 5 questions to which Yudhishthira responded, and then he could drink water. Truth is, there were 150 questions. If you search it on internet, Yudhishthira Yaksh conversation in English, you will find the entire transcripts. A lot of people have translated and placed it, so you can find that. In which, anyway, this is the important thing which has been lifted for you, which is associated with civil services values. So what is the greatest dharma? What is the, we can consider the highest form of exercising the moral code of conduct? What is the greatest moral code of conduct? To which he responded, the answer was compassion. Okay, so compassion, I'll give you the entire answer that he said. Compassion is the greatest dharma. Only when you have compassion in your heart, compassion in your heart, moral sentiment shall grow. Mind the word, what I'm writing. Moral sentiment shall grow. Moral sentiment shall grow. So only when you have compassion in your heart. So compassion is a prerequisite. Okay, it is a basic requirement. It's a prerequisite when we are speaking of the possibility of moral sentiment to grow. Moral means what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do, your individual understanding. So your individual understanding regarding when to become emotional and how much to become emotional. So when you have to measure that I should not be too kind that a person is taking advantage of me, and I should not be too like restricted that I'm unable to give and support when a person truly needs that support. So this balance of moral sentiment happens, okay, when you have compassion in your heart. When you hold compassion in your heart, you are able to exercise moral sentiment. Okay. Okay, so you can just understand this given possibility. So according to Mahabharata, you can understand that moral sentiment is something which is like, born in human heart, which is based on, we can say, empathy and compassion. And that's why, okay, there's one more statement which he had said, I can probably add that also. Compassion is in the roots. Compassion is in the roots of the tree called dharma. Okay, so compassion is in the roots of the tree called dharma. So the tree of moral code of conduct is having in its roots, in its base, compassion. With compassion, our moral sense of understanding of what right, what wrong conduct we need to have towards others grows. Okay, so that's how you can understand. No, you don't need to read Mahabharata, Ramayana, Yudhishthira for ethics. You only need to pick up incidents from Jataka tales, that is the Buddha's life. You can pick up tales from or incidents from Jainism. You can pick up tales from Quran Sharif. You can pick up insights from Bible. You can pick up insights from Mahabharata. I'm specifically giving stress to Mahabharata. It's not a religious book. It's not a religious book. It's not like people pray Mahabharata. No, Mahabharata is a book of moral inquiry. It is a book related to the, we can say, the moral crisis that a society suffers, why it suffers the moral crisis, and how to overcome it. Mahabharata is not a religious textbook. People who have poor sense of understanding, whether Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, or Christians, they will be the ones who will quote Mahabharata as a religious text. Mahabharata is not a religious text. It is a book of moral inquiry. What is the right thing to do? What is the wrong thing to do? That's why Mahabharata is quoted heavily. And you should pay attention to the example, the relevance of the example, rather than getting into the shallow debate whether it should be quoted or not. You don't feel like quoting, quote Gandhi, finish. One example is enough. You can bring quotations from other sources. You are always having the intellectual freedom to do so, but reflect upon the content. At least I believe that my generation or a lot of my civil servant friends, my professors, everyone has an open heart that when we read good statements, good examples from Bible, Quran, Mahabharata, Gita, anywhere, we are open to embrace it, because a wise person knows how to pick pearls of wisdom to add beauty to thought. Only a stupid person will have the shallowness to think, oh, I'll pick from here, but not from there. A wise person knows that wisdom, the beauty of wisdom can flow in all domains of existence. I have to be critically careful that if it is important for my thought, for nurturing me as a person, I will pick it and put it for exercise. All right, Mispa, uh, as I am explaining this, so so it's up to you. You can choose to pick one example and you can just leave the examples which you don't like. Okay, that's why I give you a lot of examples, but the purpose of giving examples is in consonance with the academic clarity. You students have not studied philosophy. If you would have studied philosophy, in Indian philosophy, you would have seen there that ancient texts are heavily quoted. Indian philosophy is all about ancient texts, right? And when there is a moral inquiry going on, then Mahabharata leads those texts in Indian philosophy because it indulges in moral inquiry heavily. That's the reason. Okay. So if and when you are not a student of philosophy, at least trust your teacher that what she is teaching you is hardcore secular and hardcore academic, and it is going to help you fetch marks. Okay. So trust the process, trust the teacher. I'm not going to, like, trying to create any kind of push of a specific text or an example. The purpose is very distinct and clear. The purpose is to encourage you towards moral inquiry and to give you pearls of wisdom, which leaves you thinking and makes you capable to reflect upon the concept bit by bit and build upon the insights so that you are able to write profound answers and impress upon the examiner accordingly. Okay. So, as all of you are understanding this, last but not the least, the concept of misplaced compassion. So, misplaced compassion is also a problem. Too much of compassion is misplaced compassion, like a mother becoming too emotional for her child. And then the child is like, ah, I want to eat this or I want to do that. And the mother sometimes allows incorrect behavior. When suppose the child wants to, like, eat a lot of candies, and the mother's like, don't eat, it's bad for your teeth, and the child's like, no, I really want the candy, and starts crying or throwing a tantrum, and the mother is like, okay, fine, I can't help it, just eat. And the child starts having rotten teeth, okay, or the child starts having a lot of cavity. So when the child has a cavity, that is something associated with a result of misplaced compassion. So misplaced compassion is when there is too much of compassion when it is not needed, too much of love when it is not needed. Okay. Similarly, you can see misplaced compassion is when you are, like, let's say, when you are giving to charity, or you are donating to a beggar, and the beggar is a drug addict. Okay. So, like in CP, it was in Indian Express few years back, a news report which clearly said this thing, that the beggars in CP, they earn 65 to 70,000 rupees per month. So I was like alarmed, huh? And before that, once, like, I don't feel like throwing food, because I feel that the nature has nurtured the food in so many steps, from the farm to the field to the processing units to the market to my house to the grocery bag to the cleaning to the cooking. And after that, when the food is reaching to the table, I refuse to eat it because I'm too full. That's an unethical behavior towards food. So I generally pack the food, or I keep the food, and I see to it that in reserved portions it is cooked so that wastage is not there. Anyway, so I had some extra food, and when I wanted to give it, because it was from a restaurant, it was not something in which I was dipping my spoon and eating. It was something which was like some extra surplus which I had ordered, but it was not consumed. So I got it packed, and I thought I'll give it to some needy. So when I was trying to find a needy and I was unable to find one, so my driver hinted that, ma'am, let's go to our area. We'll give it to some rickshaw puller or some auto driver or someone who's actually hungry, and we can suggest that the food is like untouched, not consumed, and if you want to eat, the choice is yours. We can do that over there. Here it's not fine, because you can see all these people who are begging, soon they will be purchasing beer bottles, and they will get all the chicken biryani, and they will have like biryani and beer, so they will not be in dearth of food. So this will be misplaced compassion if you are giving the food to them. Now, he did not use the term misplaced compassion, but that's what he implied. So when you are giving charity, or when you are donating to an unfit person, a person who does not deserve that compassion, deserve that charity, it is then that misplaced compassion occurs. Okay. So that is why misplaced compassion or too much compassion is also bad. All right, fine. I hope all of you are understanding this, right? So too much of compassion, which is also called misplaced compassion, is also bad. Is also bad. All right. So we'll continue with this discussion again tomorrow. So thank you for your patience and thank you for being present in the session, all of you. So, all right, let us call off for the day and have a good day. Thanks a lot. I have a question. What if you try to solve a situation with compassion, but the problem still persists? Then there are other ways. Okay, then there are other ways. Piyush. Because the question is abstract, there has to be other angles to it to substantiate it. In our daily life, sometimes because of complete awareness, we unintentionally commit misplaced compassion. Yes, that can also happen for that matter. All right, then. Thank you, all of you. Have a great day. Thanks a lot. Bye.